Just slagging you.
Because you got powerful legs. How'd you get the physique? Was it gym or how'd you get the physique?
I've always been.
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
I'm sure no one will mind.
Move him out of here, Darren.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump, you know what I'm saying?
Welcome, folks, to number 600 of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. I am your host, Matt DiGianardo, barely making it in here. What a day it was yesterday. I'm still recovering, apparently dozing off on my couch, but better late than never, as the story goes. Joining us today for number 600, we have Dez, James, Ames, and who is that lurking there? Oh my God, it's the man himself, Mr. Steve Wellings, the Wellington, as he is so known, joining us to go over this incredible card. Well, I guess not necessarily an incredible card, but a card from Saudi Arabia with an incredible heavyweight fight on the top of it, with the rematch between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury, once again making it to the scorecards in what was a very, very close fight through probably 8 rounds, but where Usyk just kind of was able to snag control of it going down the stretch, a few more adjustments, the ability to stay on the front foot a bit more, and he ended up sneaking away 116-112. Fury was angry. He didn't think that he lost that fight. I kind of thought that it was wider than the first time around. But also on that card, we saw Moises Saitoma with a first-round stoppage over Dempsey McCain in a fight where McCain just didn't seem to have any good reason to be there. We saw Dave Allen. Dave Allen got robbed in the eyes of many against Johnny Fischer, thinking that he did enough, including dropping the young Fischer in the 5th round. Lee McGregor picking up a win over Isaac Lowe in what was a pretty decent fight at the end of the day. And yeah, we'll start out with those ones. But it was a good run, a couple of decent little things in there. But that Fury Usyk fight, another one where Des, I do believe these are the 2 best heavyweights in the sport right now. And how this fight would have gone 4 years ago, I don't necessarily know. But as of right now, the 2 best heavyweights got it on last night. And it just seems like Alexander Usyk has one more gear, one more level than Tyson Fury has. And Fury's good. He's an incredible fighter. But Usyk, he's just on a different level. And I know you scored this fight for him too. Another hell of a performance from the Ukrainian fighter.
Yes, it wasn't an exciting fight. It wasn't one you particularly want to see again, but I think it had a lot of intrigue, a lot of jeopardy, and it was quite compelling to watch because going through the rounds 1 to 12, I felt either guy could build up some steam and put the other one in trouble. And it was a case of who can hold the other one off but still be effective and win the rounds. And I think that's pretty much what the fight was built on. Can Fury have his spots with the mindset of damage limitation, and can Usyk do the same? I think the fight was probably the difference between the two. I think Usyk was the proactive one, and I think Fury was the reactive one. Even to the point where we saw Fury, when he let his hands go and he stopped, he moved back 2 paces. He didn't want to be in the mixer. He didn't want to create a mixing environment. And I think that stopped Fury picking up momentum. And that's why I only gave Fury 2 shares and 4 rounds. And I gave the other 6 and 2 shares to Usyk, because I think Usyk was a bit busier, a bit more constant, and a bit more consistent with his work. And you touched on how good Usyk is. No doubt about it. He's a genius. He really is. He sees it. He sees the picture. He breaks it all down. But he's got very, very good habits. He always answers and finishes exchanges. He always tries to finish a round strong, even if he's not in that round, winning that round. And he always seems to have a really good third fight of the fight. So from 8 to 12, 9 to 12, Usyk's very, very competitive, and he finds that other gear. I think it was a good fight. I enjoyed it. I thought it would go that way. I thought Usyk probably just gets a bit better in the second one, and I think he did. I think that was a more. I think Usyk won last night, not as conclusively as the first one, but I think he was more consistent and constant, 1 to 12, and I don't necessarily agree with the margins, but we ain't got to pick the bones out of that. But I think the outcome was right. I think the right man got it. That's how I saw it.
Well, when you take your card, because you had a couple even rounds, so they'd come to 116, 114, I think. So all you really did is give those two rounds that might have gone to Fury, or you just gave those 2 rounds that you gave rounds to both directions that the judges probably gave for Usyk at this point of the day, and that's probably the general margin at the end of the day, because you had it 2 points, they had it 4, so that's in the ballpark. I was in the 115, 113 category. I thought that I think I had it even after 8 rounds, and then I think I gave either Fury the 9th and Usyk the 10th, or the other way around. So coming into the 11th, I think I had the fight up for grabs entirely. And in my opinion, I think Usyk did enough in both the 11th and the 12th to pull it. So it's tough. It's weird. I think it might be because all 3 judges scored it by that margin, as the other way around. There was one that kind of had it like that, Usyk by a point, Fury by a point. And I just think that consistent margin, I think it was a little bit indicative of the fact that this was a little bit cleaner, a little bit clearer than the first one. Maybe just my opinion on that one, though.
Just on Matty, just on that, Matty.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt. I know there's a lot of people want to talk, but I just for clarity, Shane McGuigan had it 5-3 going into round 9. So a lot of boxing people and a lot of people ringside. I know Frank Warren had his say. I know Tyson Fury's had his say, but a lot of the boxing people that I've listened to, Cole Frock was ringside, Matthew Macklin was ringside, Shane McGuigan was ringside. A lot of them guys, they had Usyk a handy winner. And going into round 9, McGuigan, who really did call the fight well last night, he had it 5-3 to Usyk going into round 9. So that's just a little bit of information.
Yeah, and I feel like that's fine around the other way. Even it out is fine. But ultimately, Steve, I got to pull you in here. Obviously, haven't had you here in a while. Happy to see you. I think this is one of those fights. I could buy a draw on this fight. I think there's enough there that maybe at a push, but I really think that Fury is kidding himself if he thinks that he has an argument of victory this time around.
Yeah, possibly. First of all, Matty, obviously I wanted to be here for episode 600. I'm not on my usual setup though, so you see if my sound's shit or my mic's off, feel free to just book me off, dude. You know the routine, but hopefully you can hear me okay so far anyway, yeah?
Yeah, you sound just fine. Crystal clear, maybe not as authoritative as you once were. Maybe that's just because now you're the number 2 on the show and you're just you don't quite have that Stalin-esque rah-rah thing going on.
Well, you know, I'm coming in at 281 pounds now. Bald, few more lines on the forehead. Got a bit of a beard going on. You know, times are tough for me here. But anyway, I'll do my
versus
best.
Joyce versus Fury in a Misfits 3-way boxing match. Sign me up.
Oh my word! Yeah, so I felt that on the fight itself. I thought that Usyk nicked it. Wouldn't have been disappointed with the draw. Wouldn't have been surprised if they'd have given it to Fury as well, just to get that trilogy over the line. We all know which side the promoter, the in-house, the broadcaster are all rooting for, which I'll talk about later, because I thought that did annoy me a little bit. I think Fury faded down the stretch was the problem, and his fitness, his age, the 280 pounds, or it probably wasn't as much as that, but we know that he wasn't. The weight seems to work for him, but when you get in a hard fight against someone like Usyk and you get into rounds 9, 10, and 11, it's going to catch up on you. The wear and the tear, the Wilder fights. I'm not the only person who said this, but those Wilder fights were hard fights. I know he won the last 2, took a lot out of Wilder. We saw he was never the same man again. And it's to Fury's credit, I think, that he's come back and he's had these 24 rounds with Usyk after those Wilder fights, and he was able to push him nip and tuck. I think that prevented him from closing it out. And as well, you have to be careful, don't you? As much as having a better round than the previous one sometimes inclines the judges to give you that round, maybe having a better fight than the previous one inclined people to think that Fury automatically won the fight. After round 9 in the first one, which this one lacked the drama of the first fight, I thought. After round 9 and onwards in that first fight, it was quite intense. And this one was intense as well, but it didn't have that sort of pivotal moment. And I think Fury, because he picked up in round 13 and he came out with a jab, came out with that lovely uppercut, the body shots were working. Maybe people are looking at it and saying he did a bit better than he actually did. But with the margins, 116, 112, I get that people think that's a little bit wide, but you're only around. I was saying this to Ben earlier, actually. We were having a chat about it. And if you're going to say, I felt that Usyk won the fight, like Johnny Nelson did, he said, I felt that Usyk won the fight, but I thought 116, 112, he said, was a little bit wide. But if you think about it, if you feel like Usyk's won the fight, then 115, 113, barring any even rounds, is the only score you can have before you get to the draw. So in 116, 112 is only like a 1 round away from that. So were the margins really that wide? I don't know. I know the AI judge, I think like 118, 112 or something, but I could see how the judges came to that conclusion with so many close rounds. It didn't feel fair. It didn't feel right. It felt a lot closer than that, but you can see how they came to that conclusion. As I said, it was an intense fight. I thought Usyk's movement was key, kept Fury moving all the time. He wasn't a stationary target. Fury had a lot of success, caught him off balance at times, but his head movement, Usyk, his footwork, we all know these things. He's the king of the championship rounds, never lets you get momentum, always fires back. McGuigan said it as well. This is an Eastern European thing. Sven Ottke, German, I know he was German, he used to do this a lot, the last 30 seconds. Arthur Abraham, last 20, 30 seconds, that's when they would put it on to catch the eye of the judges, and it's definitely a thing. And one final thing I'll say, Matty, before I bring the other boys in. Post-fight annoyed me. I know Frank's the promoter, I know he's got a horse in the race, and he was upset and all, but I don't know, he just let himself down, I thought. He was bitter, he was just absolutely bitter coming at the end and going on about, oh, me and my mates at ringside thought that Fury won. There's 3 judges thought he didn't, and the AI judge, people at home, whatever. It's a close fight, man. And then you got Addy, the interviewer. He comes on at the end and can't remember exactly what his question was to Usyk, but he's like, I think it was something like, did you agree with the scorecard? Something along those lines. I'm sure the chat will be.
He just said, I won, and shrugged.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what he said, but someone in the chat will remember. It's something like, did you agree with the scorecards, or were the scorecards fair? Something along those lines. What an odd question. And then Usyk, Usyk's not slow. He could have been trolling him. He could have been treating him with contempt. He looked a little bit confused, started going on about playing judo with his sons or something. I had no idea what he was going on about. But the line of questioning I thought was so bizarre. It was a funereal sort of feel about it. You know, Addy comes in with his funeral suit on and everyone's down and everyone's glum. Turkey wanted Fury to win, Saudi, the promoter, everything's in-house, isn't it? They all know the way they wanted it set up. And that's the way boxing's going at the moment. But that was a little bit of a sour taste at the end. But the fight itself, I thought, was good. It was intense. We got a reasonably clear and conclusive winner. Maybe the draw definitely would have brought us to a trilogy, I suppose. But I tell you what, I will credit Fury just finally, Matty, by saying didn't think he had that in him. I thought by about round 8 or 9, he's going to start to fade here. And he didn't. And he kept it close, we thought, right until the end. And yeah, I tell you what, he's proved me wrong all through his career. Way back to the Belfast days, I looked at him as a big gangly idiot who David Price would beat. And boy, was I wrong.
Man, I remember the Price and Fury arguments from like what was that, like about 12 years ago or so when folks were.
I sat there arguing with Mick Hennessy in the bowels of the Odyssey Arena, thinking that David Price was going to knock him out. Why have you dropped the British, Mick? And I didn't think Fury was up to much. I thought his defense was lax, and he's turned into a really difficult guy to beat.
He was one of those guys where I think when he became a champion, it kind of changed his confidence level a little bit. His skill was always very, very evident, but some of the dancing and the other shit that he's done was with the feet. It was weird, but in the realm, this is going to be weird. So James, in the realm of the feet and the legs. And, in thinking about, man, how was Usyk able to just have so much more stamina late in that fight? Yeah, it's a weird thing to talk about, James, but look at the calves of these guys. Fury is on toothpicks, which is rare for a guy who has carried such weight to be on legs like that. But Usyk, he's stout, big calves. And I really think that there's just Tyson's light on his feet. He's kind of lightly built like that, but over 12 rounds, I think being on those toothpicks doesn't help the guy.
Well, they're built different and they train different, so I think the disparity there in maneuverability is just a result of that. But when Fury was a younger man, you could see he had a lot more lateral movement, could get lower down in his stance as he was switching, could move around fairly fleet-footed. I'd say with age and weight and fluctuations and damage and the like, he hasn't got that maneuverability anymore. And yesterday, the plan was to close distance on Usyk and make his size count. And I think he faced a little bit of criticism for not staying in there enough, but I do feel like he spent a lot more time within punching range than he did in the first fight. And you could see him kind of arguing with himself and grimacing as the combinations were coming in, because he was trying his best to walk through the sheer activity that Usyk brings. Because it's not just punches, it's feints, and it's like little probes here and there, changes of angle. The sheer activity that he brings is as exhausting as, like, say, punches landed. So yeah, I think the difference in maneuverability was obvious, but I think it was also dictated by Fury's tactics. I don't think he wanted to be skirting the periphery. I think he wanted to be right in Usyk's face as much as possible. That wasn't always possible, obviously. But I think Fury made the necessary changes that you would have thought beforehand. What do I need to do differently? It was similar to Anthony Joshua in their second fight, where he got closer, landed more body punches, probably put up a better showing, but also lost more clearly in a way. It's strange. But yeah, Usyk knows how to stack up the centimeters, if you know what I mean. He has these little victories. He'll pinch around here. He'll end an exchange there. He'll string rounds together, and before you know it, you're 2 or 3 behind where you wanted to be. And he makes the most out of everything, out of every inch of talent he's got. He makes the most out of it, and he's creative, and he's brave, and he's tough, and he's a very difficult man to beat. So yeah, I'm a Fury fan, and it brings me no pleasure to say this. I thought Usyk was going to stop him before the fight, but I was very impressed by both of them, and it's a testament to Fury and the adjustments he made defensively, including like using that right hand as a bit of a shield, and not switching southpaw as much and staying there as long. He was very respectful of what Usyk was bringing to the table, only part of which is that maneuverability. So I thought it was a great fight, intense, very intense, captivating. But yeah, it was a funereal feel afterwards, a little bit deflated, I feel, which is strange because it was a massive event and a massive fight. So yeah, a good experience, if a slightly melancholic result for me.
Yeah, it's tough because I have a really a soft spot for Fury too, and not just from interviews with people in his family in the past and things like that. Tyson Fury is a very, very rare combination, and what's different, but and let's say, and maybe it's not correct for me to say this exactly, but I would say Tyson Fury at his very best against Alexander Usyk at his very best is going to be a very competitive fight, and Fury is not there anymore. But the thing about Fury compared to Usyk is you got these incredibly talented fighters, and there's a bunch of guys who have been this way. You are top-notch players in the game. But the ability to also have the personality, the character, the boisterousness to sell a fight and to be that person in the sport of boxing is what makes Tyson Fury special. And I hate to see him go away. And when I thought he was done after White, I'm like, man, that's kind of an emotional moment, thinking you might see him walk to the ring the last time. And then, like Fury, he doesn't ever retire and stuff like that. But one day he will. This might be his last fight. And it's a shame because the combination of skills and salesmanship is what sets Tyson Fury apart from other fighters. Joe Burns kicking in at $9.99 says, "Love you, boys. Has Usyk got a better resume than Mayweather?" Man, we might have to talk about that one. Well done on the bet, Des, kicking in that $9.99 he owes you there. And then also our man Michael Thompson jumping in as well with a $5, says, "Merry Christmas to all the pod and the nutters. Usyk not getting jobbed on the scorecards for a second time is a Christmas miracle in itself." And then Stephen Anthony, Stephen Antrobus. Why did I say that? Anyways, it's about time His Excellency sponsors the best boxing podcast in the world. Yes, I'm here to tell you, it's not that I won't sell out. It's just that nobody's offering any money. I just need a good offer. Turkey, give me a call. I'm right here, dog. But anyways, we appreciate you guys and your contributions and for being with us through 600 episodes of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. It's been great. Thank you to all of you super chatters out there. Let's see here. I'm going to turn this one over. We got a couple people. I'm going to turn it over to Ames first. Dom is in here now as well. But Ames, I'll tell you what, if there's anything that amazes me with Usyk, it's, he does things with his right hand. He's not without abilities. But Usyk, in the way he varies how he throws his left hand, the angles, the way he slings the shot, straight loop, over the top, etc. I don't know that I have ever seen a fighter with so much variance, power, and versatility in one hand as Alexander Usyk. Ames. Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few of you guys have been in boxing a lot longer than I have and might be able to give a better answer in terms of the past fighters that have featured a very skill set as vast as Usyk. Golovkin kind of springs to mind, just as how he's able to vary punches and get those finishes in fights in innovative and different ways. But I'm sure you guys can add a few others. In terms of the fight, look, I thought it was a tense and captivating first watch, but not a fight that would probably excite like the first did, or have the value in rewatchability in terms of entertainment where the first did have that. I didn't score it as I was working and a little bit distracted, so I can't really give you like a pinpoint scorecard from my point of view. But with that said, like, I thought Usyk won the fight, and I said by a couple of rounds. I thought like the Fury has shown adaptability throughout his career. And he sort of dipped back into a trick of his own, or a plan he'd used before in fights past. He took the success he had from the crisis moment in Wilder Fury 1 and turned that into his game plan for 2 and 3, getting dropped in the final round and coming forward. Fury, I thought, for me, was on the back foot a lot more after the early spot of aggression. And in the first fight with Usyk after that crisis 9th round, he was on that back foot a lot more. And I think he has missed some credit that's due his way as to how well he boxed after that 9th round, where he was hurt. And I think he made the plan for that, at least after the early spot of aggression for that. Much to do, of course, also with how well Usyk was pressurizing him. I think you've got to give credit to Fury as well, that he definitely tightened things up. And that's evidenced by at the highest level or even a competitive fight when it comes to Fury. Fury has to survive in some form. There's some sort of crisis I've mentioned, some sort of knockdown, or there's a cut. And there wasn't that moment really because his defense and footwork was a lot better. However, offensively, like the sacrifices he had to make, so to keep his defense tighter was the gloves up to cover that overhand left that pierced through in the first. He kept that high, but that meant he had to abandon the frequency in which he could throw that uppercut. And that really hampered his chances of scoring points or hurting Usyk later on in the stretch. Added into the mix that any Usyk fight at heavyweight comes down to when it matters, 6, 7 to 12 onwards. If you haven't made that dent early or you can't keep up, you're in trouble. Fury wasn't drowning, but he was paddling fast, keeping Usyk off of him, type of punches. And where that wasn't that crisis moment in the first fight, this time in the second, Usyk spent a lot of energy in that 9th round in the first fight, meaning that he couldn't quite get the finish, and his output from 9 to 12 onwards was a lot less. But this time round, because there wasn't that moment, he was able to kind of reserve and pepper his opponent a lot more through that 9th and 12th onwards, and Fury really had no answer for that. And I thought Usyk was a deserved winner here. No AI 118, 110 or whatever that was for myself. No robbery, no need for a trilogy. I do wonder, in terms of the Fury point of view, who I believe the talk coming into this fight, I believe the rhetoric saying that Fury's camp was hampered by the cut and he had to manage his sparring and such.
By the what?
By the cut that he had.
Oh, his cut on his face. Yeah.
I believe that it was hampered by that cut in the first fight, and he had to manage his sparring, or he had to manage his camp, which meant he couldn't be as full a reflection of himself as he wanted to. And I believe that this time around he came in as best as he could. He took himself away as best as he could, and we got the best version of Fury that we could see at this point. Not the peak of his powers, Fury, that's definitely gone, but as best as we could here. And it just wasn't enough in the fight. He tried those moments. He tried to lean in and get in on Usyk. The thing with the thing with like leaning and exerting this dominance and weighing down on your opponent is like at the highest level, when you got a level of IQ with Usyk, that's really never going to work, because the worst thing you do in those moments is when you're not experienced. You don't understand that you don't push off your opponent because you drain your energy. You just kind of you walk yourself back and let the referee, an experienced referee, split you, so you haven't drained any of your energy. Usyk's not going to fall for those tricks. I think Usyk maybe pushed Fury once in that fight, later on in that fight. And that was also a bit of a sign as well, too. Like the fact that this is a guy who weighed in heavier. He made a thing that he was coming in a little bit heavier and going for that knockout here. And at the end of the fight, he's being pushed by Alexander Usyk. It was a real kind of bad sign here. And a little bit of confusion as well, too.
He's got that short heavyweight Holyfield kind of build, man. I mean, he's a stout mofo.
He's very, very, very deceptively strong here. And it's also a little bit confusing as well, too. In the same breath that I'm saying that I thought Usyk was good and boxed here, I don't quite understand why you have Sugar Hill, whose MO is to get the knockout, and you're not looking to. You're more of the Fury for me in the one that climbed his way up to the heavyweight title the first time round, as opposed to the one post the first Wilder fight. So I don't quite get the mesh of game plans or thinking or whatever, like the ethos of how they're gonna get the victory here. So that is bit of a confusing point for me here. But Fury, this is a guy who has said for many years, has shouted to the rafters and the rooftops, and I get a lot of it is selling, but a lot of it you start to believe, where you think you're the best of this generation, can't be beaten, no man from his mother, 7 days a week, twice on a Sunday. I'm not saying this to disparage Fury, but these are the statements and sentences that have come out from the Fury camp. And when you lose and when you have to swallow and accept that you're not the best of your generation, it's got to be asked and pondered what that will do for your psyche as to whether you want to continue or not, and how it might change you as a fighter and your ambitions to, sure, there's a lot of money on the table, but to claim a world title again, or if you can even get there, kind of thing. Fury
he needs to, this is one of those moments, Ames, where you got to count your blessings. I mean, he might not be the heavyweight champion anymore, but he's still the king of the gypsies, which has to count for something.
No, look, Fury's still a quality fighter. As much as I'm saying as well, what might be the cause and effect of these back-to-back losses, I still think he's operating at a very, very high level, higher than. There's only one or two fighters maybe that I might suggest could beat him right now, but there aren't very many here, and those two stand ahead and above a lot of the competition. But it's just whether you want to compete and whether you can bring yourself up to that level, because the goal of being the best of this generation has now it's gone and passed you by. That's claimed by Usyk. So what does that do for you? Where do you stand then? That remains to be answered here. But Alexander Usyk, unified heavyweight champion. I've got some appetite for the Dubois rematch, not based on the fact that it was a robbery or he should have been a knockdown, as opposed to Usyk getting the count. More so that
just on an upward trajectory at this point in time. He's
exactly
clearly a developing fighter hitting his peak.
Absolutely, and I think he's a confidence fighter too. And
he's not a well-spoken fighter. That was a dumbass joke of a confrontation after the fight last night. But he's an improving heavyweight fighter who's in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah, well, he's a better spoken fighter than he was a few years back. That's for sure. And I think a guy like Dubois, when you pump up the ego, pump up and just make him think like he's the biggest, heaviest, baddest man on the planet, I think that does wonders for someone like Daniel. So you just wind him up and you let him go on the night and see what he can do. I think the power differential between what Dubois can generate and what Fury can generate is a real threat and a real potential to kind of skew where the fight might go. But he's got to land that punch. He's got to be better in closing that distance. There was an interesting point made by Carl Froch in some of the post-fight reactions that I caught. And Carl suggested from his fighter's eye point of view that whilst Usyk is still operating at a high level, he's past his peak in terms of performances of the Usyk of the past. And this is a fighter now in decline. And I would not want to see someone like Usyk, who has done what he's done in 23 fights on the road, not being the A side, lose because he wasn't the best reflection of himself, or a young fella has come in at basically timing has kind of aligned for him to kind of fall apart in the ring. So I'd like to see maybe Usyk close it out with a couple of fights and maybe get a homecoming bout as closest to home as you can get right now. But long live Alexander Usyk, who is just put himself right up there.
Yeah, for somebody with so few fights, he's stacked up a pretty damn decent resume, and the skill is just so obviously on display. Even if there weren't many foes to take on, Usyk would be one of those fighters that's discussed long after he's gone. Believe me, I don't know if I'll live long enough to see people still talking about Alexander Usyk in a classic sort of manner, but it will certainly happen. Let's see here. The only person I haven't gone to yet is Dom. Well, that's exactly what we need here. I mean, given that Fury is the former Irish champion, Dom, obviously this was a tough one for you to swallow. But here it is. I know the eyes of Ireland are clearly probably weeping today, but try to muscle your way through your thoughts.
RSA's weeping instead of RSA smiling, Molly. I remember in the days of peak Sky with Johnny Nelson and Adam
Well,
Smith.
let me ask you a question, Dom. Like a whole bunch of people like go and kiss the Blarney Stone. Do you think at this point in time the Blarney Stone has oral herpes? You're just asking for it.
Well, I've never been myself. Actually, it's one of those things. It's one of those touristy things, that's
you guys think it's stupid, but tens of thousands of people go to see every year.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm on the beaten. I do holiday in Ireland, Molly, but I go to the off the beaten track places. Well, the places that aren't. Well, they are still thirsty enough. Anyway, we're getting off. You're I'm getting off track here, Molly. Let me see.
Anyway, back to Fury. And your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I'm late. First of all, I'm sorry I missed the earlier part of the discussion.
I wasn't even here when the show started. I was 15 minutes late. Don't even worry.
There you go. That's good, reassuring to know you've got reliable deputies. But just picking up on what Ian said there about what Frotch said. I'll get to the fight in a wee minute, but I too watched Frotch's breakdown, and I thought it was one of the better reactions from those who were in attendance at the fight last night. And it was an interesting point Frotch made about the potentially Usyk is no longer just maybe the same fighter who beat Joshua in the first fight. I think if you look at the Usyk that night of the first Joshua fight, and how comprehensively he won that fight, that may have been a high watermark. But when Ames was saying that, I was sort of had the sort of opposing thought that I'm trying to remember who said this, but I think it was maybe Duke McKenzie who said it also earlier today, and Duke McKenzie said, I think it might have been Ames who interviewed him actually as well.
Because he was 4 stones heavier, yeah. So he had to fight like that.
Were you interviewing him, Ames?
Sure was, yeah. Am I that forgettable?
Yeah, no. It's just I'm so up and listen. I'm actually not Ames. It's more just I've been so sort of frazzled catching up with so many things that everything's a bit of a blur. But no, I thought Duke McKenzie's point was maybe the more convincing point in terms of deciding coming to a view about whether Usyk is on the slide or not, because Duke just said if you're giving away that much natural weight and size, it's not going to be an easy night's work. Yes, I do think Usyk won the fight. I think he was a deserving winner, but I think it may not. I wouldn't be just as willing to say that he's definitely on the slide. I would tend to put the emphasis more on just the fact that it's a marvel that he's able to, still come out on top, despite his sort of the things that he's given away in size and everything. I mean, I would just go back to what the speaker before Ames was saying, and I endorsed that. It was, although it wasn't as dramatic a fight as the first fight, it was certainly all those words. It was intense. It was absorbing. It was engrossing. If you knew what you're looking at, it was you couldn't take your eyes off it, and you were sort of rapt bet. But I do think Fury found a way to make his height and his reach count more, and be. I think he found a way to exploit those things better than he did in the first fight. But Frotch also made a very telling point that I cut and I put into the chat earlier, that at this stage in his life and at this stage in his career and the way he's lived his life, Fury doesn't have the engine and the tank to sustain that, and that's what was needed to be done to get him over the line. I think I felt he was doing very well holding the centre of the ring in a way that he hadn't managed to do in the first fight. He was doing that very well for the first half of the fight last night, but I felt after halfway, Usyk was coming on stronger all the time, and he was able to sustain the quality of his work right to the very end. Whereas Fury, I thought the longer the fight went on, he had to resort to more and more attempting to initiate holding and clinching. He had to try and do that more the longer the fight went on. and making a bit messier the longer the fight went on. And I interpreted that as a way of sort of dealing with the tiredness. And yeah, it's I think you heard Sugar Hill at various stages in the second half of the fight imploring him not to back up and to hold his feet in the center of the ring, but that's easier said than done, especially when you're not as conditioned as you need to be as a result of not having lived life outside the ring the way you should. And yeah, it's some the likes of Steve Bunce were calling for a trilogy after the fight. I think I've sort of at this stage of their careers, I was thinking about this earlier, and I think no matter how many times they fought now, I think it would be very difficult for Fury to get a decision. Lennox Lewis made a very interesting point after the fight. I'm just sort of amplifying, Matty, here the sort of views of others that I took to be worthy of repeating to the listeners. But Lewis said that having lost the first fight, the onus was really on Fury to really do something major and significant to overturn that result in a more decisive fashion. Now I'm sort of part of me is sort of reluctant to endorse that view. It's just the 12 rounds and you score each individual round, separately, but it is hard to avoid at the same time that feeling that, if you're part of Fury's camp and you've lost the first fight, deep down that, you have to show decisively and conclusively that you've somehow tilted the thing back in your favor. I do think it's interesting. I was listening to another interview that Ames did with Wally Downs, the boxing reporter of the Sun, I think, here in the UK, and I was surprised. I thought Downs was very, I wouldn't say, well, not critical, but he said he was disappointed by Fury showing, especially down the stretch, that he wanted to see more from him. Whereas I thought Fury actually, I thought there was evidence that they'd gone away and they'd cut out, they'd sorted out the corner, they'd cut out the showboating. There was clearly, I think, an attempt to use his natural advantages, his height and his reach, and they'd worked on that. But ultimately, I just think it wasn't enough. And yeah, it's I'm not, even in terms of the Fury Joshua fight, I don't really have any interest in seeing it, to be honest. I really don't care if it happens or not at this stage. There's no real, I don't really feel
there's
any.
Such a casual draw for that fight.
Yeah, there is, but
they don't need people like us in the stands.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't. And that's for those guys. That's the ideal scenario. It's you're not dependent on sort of curmudgeons like us, but yeah, it's I just Usyk. I don't know. Maybe I would like to see him retire. I think I don't really feel any need to see the Dubois rematch. Legard was calling for that. I don't think he would have too much of a problem beating Dubois. I know Dubois is on a crest of a wave, and by the way, Dubois, he's given Joseph Parker. If you're Joseph Parker, you've got all the motivation you need after that. Jumping in the ring before have they even had a press conference with Parker to announce that fight? I don't think so. I know it's announced, but it's official, but they haven't had a launch presser. But I mean, if you're Joseph Parker, all your motivation is you don't need to. He's going to be highly motivated after Dubois. Basically, that was very disrespectful. For a guy, I know he's had a big result against AJ, but I'm one of the people who think there's Dubois still has questions to answer in certain aspects. I think he's very confident fighter, and if things aren't going well in a fight, I wouldn't be sure that he has the resources to sort of turn momentum in a fight the way we've seen, for example, Usyk and Fury himself do on many occasions. So, yeah, I thought that was a real a sour point of the whole night. it was, you know, a part of me doesn't blame Dubois because clearly, you know, he was someone put him up to that, and you sort of prodded him into the ring. I think.
Warren, I bet you Warren.
Well, Warren denied it, Steve. Warren, you know, denied
Definitely
it.
True then.
Dubois said in the lead up that he was going to do it, so it wasn't a spur of the moment thing. He said he was going to do whatever the result was going to be.
And it's ridiculous. It just for, I mean, various, you know, things that we've seen after his fights. Like, why the hell won't people let Usyk have his moment? You know, I don't know what the fucking deal is.
Well, another thing is, Matty, you know, just dwelling for a moment on the post-fight interview. I mean, it was, to me, it was just further evidence, not that it were needed, that there needs time for a rethink about the post-fight interviews. I mean, by all means, interview people who haven't been actually taking the blows, like trainers, managers, promoters. But you know, I think that it would be more fruitful to allow the fighters to retreat into the sanctuary of the dressing room, get checked out, maybe get a shower, and then before they go into their presser, and to speak to the main press, the
do they
print press.
shower before their interviews? Do they shower, Dominic?
But oddly enough, as well, Dominic, have you noticed in the undercards they've stopped doing post-fight interviews, haven't they? Now it's only the main event in Saudi.
I didn't know. Is that just in Saudi? You've noticed that, Steve?
Yeah, I noticed it last night, especially. They were going to interview, I think, one of the maybe Boachuk or somebody like that. But apart from that, Adi did a couple backstage. They didn't do them.
I think the reason why, though, is because if you remember, they had a very set schedule for the events, and you had a lot of fights that went to decision. Every fight that went to decision, they had to get those fighters out and get the next fighters in with the way that their itinerary was working. But if people were able to get a stoppage, then they had a moment to talk to them, obviously.
I see Matty here at DP Creeper 1 has just, I'm assuming it's me he's talking about it. I can't imagine it's Rob he's talking about. He's described me as Barry McGuigan's illegitimate bastard son, so...
He did fall out of a plane, to be fair, old DB, so cut him some slack.
Big up DB.
I mean, just to sort of contradict my own point on the interview question, I mean, sometimes you can't get... it is rare, I have to make that point, but if you remember Anto Kakachi's interview after he beat Cordina, I thought that was a brilliant interview. There was so much character in it, and it was really entertaining. But it is a rarity that you get an interview that justifies the exercise like that. But I suppose
straight after the fight, Dominic, they've taken headshots. You know, they were going to be discoordinated. It's come out with all sorts of shit. That's the time you want to be hearing from them.
But value of the week is in cold storage at the minute, Steve. So,
yeah, fair enough.
But
if McGuigan did have an illegitimate son, would his nickname be the Bonus Cyclone?
Perfect moment here. Great moment there to shift gears, Rob. Connor Mateer with a $5.99 super chat, and there it says, "Great show, lads. Few years of abuse and inactivity has caught up on him, and last 3 rounds was proof that legs have gone. Usyk definitely the GOAT, at least the GOAT of his generation in the higher weight classes. I think is pretty clear ultimately." But anyhow, but I'll tell you, Connor, you're throwing in these super chats. I'd love to see you join up at patreon.com/boxing asylum and get into the Nutters group. I think you'd fit in really, really well.
Do it, Connor. You won't regret it.
Oh, absolutely
Quebec
not.
City.
And you can join with our new Patreon member, Jonathan Johnson, who I expect to get in on the fun as well. So yeah, check it out at patreon.com/boxing asylum. You're already kicking us money. You might as well join the group, man. We appreciate you catching the show and your support over the last couple of months. Believe me, I don't forget these things. But anyhow, so thanks again to Connor and everyone else who's kicked in there. But Rob Kelly on with us now as well. He said Dom's on there. Well, I'm not going to let him take the Irish opinion solo. So here comes Rob, who along with me thought Fury was going to win. We were wrong. You thought it would go to the cards. I thought this was going to be to a stoppage. And Rob, the only solace I'll take in my oops, fuck that one up, is that I do feel I was at least correct in my belief that this fight was going to be won by whoever was going to find themselves marching forward more often than not. And that was kind of the tell of the fight. Whoever moved forward and posed themselves, they were winning.
Yeah, I thought the fight would look like that. Don't be fooled by Des, by the way. Des is Irish as well. He just learned how to speak properly. Um, but I thought the fight would look like that, but I thought Fury would get the nod. I thought it'd be a close fight. I thought it'd go to decision. I thought there'd be a little bit of mauling holding in it. Wasn't as much of that as I anticipated, but I thought it would look exactly like that, and then Fury would get the decision. Having looked back at it, I think there's a real argument. I think for that Fury got 6 rounds in the fight. I know the draw doesn't suit everyone, and I know people will say, Usyk was the clear winner in that. And like, look, in a close fight, if you're going to pick a winner there, Usyk looked like the guy that was doing it. But I think Fury won. I had Fury 4-2 up after 6. I had him 3-1 up after 4. Now, if you go against that and you give two rounds apiece after 4 rounds, then you can see maybe the scorecards for Usyk getting to 8-4. But tie 8-4 was extreme. 7-5 either way. I think Fury definitely won some of the rounds down the stretch. 1 or 2 anyway, not massively, but just at that 6th round, it looked like Fury had his number up until round 6. I think Dominic spoke about it. Like the real estate and that was going to be the battle, right? And I spoke about this in a lot since the fight happened, because I was kind of astounded the first time that Usyk, in the first round, in the first fight, that Usyk was able to back him up so easily, control the center of the ring, and push him back. So he tried that at the start, in the very, very start of the fight last night, and Fury kind of used his strength to hold him off and put him on the end of the jab and was like, I'm going to hold the ring. But it's the strength on the inside, I think, is the difference. I think Fury fought to a game plan, but there was still signs of hesitancy in his own game last night. It's like he felt the PTSD from the fucking overhand left from the first fight in the round 9, and he didn't want to get caught, and his hands weren't letting him commit to things that his mind was telling him, if you get me. So Sugar and the boys were telling him, to be on the front foot and get behind the jab. But there was just, when he was square on, you could see he was hesitant. He was waiting on Usyk to get his fucking moment off. I thought Usyk, in the first half of the fight, I thought there was a lot of stuff that landed on the gloves, especially with the overhand left as he was trying it. Fury was doing well at moving out of range. But I don't think the legs were there for Fury. And that wasn't just obvious in the last 3 rounds. I think it was obvious from the start. If you look back at the Wilder fight, the second one, when he stopped him, him and Sugar Hill were working on that jab and then move the feet back and jab right hand. So it was jab, spring back out, jab right hand.
Like a double phase attack or whatever.
Yeah, and he could not do that last night. There was times where you could see he was trying to do it, but that jab and then move your feet out and then back in with the jab right hand just didn't happen. So, that's probably a combination of being 281 pounds as well. But I think they had a game plan to lie on him. But I think the reality of lying on Usyk is different than the theory. He's so good in the clinch in the...
Oh, did anyone else lose Rob there?
Yep.
Someone's lying on his connection.
Oh.
Sorry, I came back there. Mrs. was ringing me. Did you hear that?
No, we missed probably like the last 20 seconds there. Feel free to repeat that.
So, yeah, I was saying, I think the difference between they came in with a game plan. Size was going to be an issue, and they obviously were thinking about working Usyk in the clinch on the inside. But I think that's easier said than done. He's so strong on the inside. He's such a good wrestler. There was one. I think Fury didn't go for the clinch until like the 8th round, and the same in the last fight. He didn't go for the clinch until like the 8th round, and when he initiated it, Usyk turned him and pushed both his hands out of place, like as if it was a judo move, almost like a bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He just pushed his hands out of the way, leaned into him, and then created the space again and started punching. And I think Usyk fights like, I don't know if any of his play sixes or whatever, but say you're up against a fucking unbelievable defender, right? And you get squared up against him, and then he's so herky-jerky, he's making your decision for you, so he's making you go on the outside, even if you don't want to go on the outside. And then, you panic a little bit, you try to force a shot, he gets the block in, you think, fuck it, I'll go and drop off and try and get the ball. Now the fucker's following you. And he's making you think at all times, and then, fucking 10 minutes of that and you're mentally exhausted. I think there's a bit of that with Usyk as well. During the breaks, he never has a break. When you're a big man, you're trying to reset. He's just constantly on the move, making you think, putting you under mental pressure as well as physical pressure. All this stuff has been said about
His
him a million
footwork
times.
is so good that he is never out of position, but all the little things that he does keeps you out of position. Those Ukrainians and their feet. It's just freaking ridiculous.
And as well as that, he in close rounds, he makes sure he answers everything. Ward was a bit like that too. There's certain fighters, they don't let you have an inch. He's like that. If you get off on Usyk, he doesn't let you fucking rest on your laurels or celebrate your wins. He's back with an answer. Always having the last word in an argument. Like, so, yeah, I think close fight, clear winner. Wouldn't have been surprised if they gave the nod to Fury even after that performance. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was 115, 113 on all the cards, that way. But maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's best for the division out of who's the winner there. What's best for the future of the division. All we have to do is, I suppose, enjoy Usyk while we have him. He's basically had fucking 48 rounds against AJ and Fury now, and they haven't fucking been able to do anything with him really of substance. Fury caught him a couple of times, but he never really fucking hurt him or looked like he had him in trouble or he was going to stop him or anything like that. It was a nip and tuck fight last night. I think Fury fought a lot better than he did in the first fight. Don't think he could have fought a lot worse. He was in as good nick as he can be, but I do think the cumulative effects of all those, the trilogy with Wilder, I don't think we'll fully appreciate that one until both of them have retired about 10 or 15 years. And the lifestyle, the shots that he took off of Usyk in that round 9, and the big punch that he took from Ngannou as well. I think, I don't want to say he's gun shy, but I think he definitely looked a step too hesitant to engage last night and actually put the foot on the gas. So enjoy Usyk while he's here. I don't know what he fucking does next. He's 38 too, getting fitter and faster and stronger. So who knows how long he'll be around for. He could be around for another 10 years by the look of him. But I don't know if Dubois 2 makes sense. Probably just wave a big bag of money in front of me, take it for a handy night's work. The talk is he's going back down to cruiserweight, isn't it? So, versus Beterbiev, that's what I'd like to see. Beterbiev move up to cruiser and him.
Absolutely,
maybe that.
Fucking
I think that's a great. But I think
there,
I think that would be great to see it. I can't see it happening. I think it's just too. It's probably unlikely. I think someone in the Nutters chat made a very good suggestion that instead of Usyk going down to fight Opataya at cruiserweight, Opataya could go up and they could have a fight at heavyweight instead of Usyk going back down. I think that would be.
I think Opataya would have to unify the cruiserweight division completely first, to bring that sort of value up with him. At the moment, he's just an IBF champion. I don't mean it like that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and in terms of a Dubois, another reason why I would hate to see a second fight with Usyk and Dubois is that I'm just sick of Bricktop. I just don't want to see him, hear him. Can you imagine him in Dubois' corner, barking up about how Usyk's got away with this, how he lost both fights against Fury, and in the build-up to the Dubois fight, it would just be nauseating. But I think we need a break. I need to put Bricktop in a bit of cold storage. I better shut up now before he sues me.
Yes, we're in a very sue-happy world. Well, keep us out of that, damn it. Well, the fact that we haven't been sued yet, I mean, it's probably safe. So, Des, it looks like you want to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to just sort of add something to what Ames and Dominic and Rob touched on, and that was Fury's reluctance to be proactive and press the fight. We've all been a little bit, maybe, I think hoodwink's the wrong expression, but we've all been a little bit gassed by Deontay Wilder's second fight with Fury. And we saw Fury with Sugar Hill, this new relationship, and Fury looked amazing. He got Wilder down in the third round, and that was the start of something, and he really believed in that product and that style. But the time from Wilder 2 to Wilder 3 was 20 months. And then when he went back in with Wilder, nearly 2 years later, he had a life and death, and he stared defeat in the face. And then since then, we've never seen a Fury that wanted to engage, wanted to go on the front foot. Even against White and Chisora and Ngannou, we never saw a proactive Tyson Fury. Prior to Wilder 2, we never saw a proactive Tyson Fury. So you heard it last night, and Sugar Hill said to him, I think it was after Usyk had rounds 6, 7, and 8, which were probably Usyk rounds, Sugar Hill was imploring to Fury, you've got to go and get this guy. And then after round 9, Fury sat down and said, I've done what you said, haven't I? I've done it. But so I think that's an uneasy, it's not natural for Fury to go on the front foot and go looking for people. So I think if we take Wilder 2 out of his resume, Fury's always a back foot counter punching fighter.
Yeah, it's not very common for him to just kind of try to lean in and beat people up as much as we kind of thought he could do that from the second Wilder fight. I think the only other time I really remember him doing that effectively was probably Tom Schwarz, as far as recent fights. In this
and the one thing you can always guarantee about a boxer, when they're in trouble, they will revert to type. So I just think what we see in Tyson Fury. And I know we've given him and Sugar Hill a lot of plaudits, and I like the relationship, especially with Andy Lee coming into it. But I just think Tyson Fury is a big version of Andy Lee. He's not like a.
But he doesn't have that one punch to bail him out either. Like Lee, I mean, that right hook was always waiting.
And he's not a front foot aggressive puncher. He's not that guy. So I just think if you take the Wilder 2 fight out of his resume, the rest of his career, that's Tyson Fury. And I can't emphasize it enough. We don't talk about it. There was 20 months between Wilder 2 and Wilder 3. That's really hurt Tyson Fury, that has.
It's the way Tyson Fury was schooled. It was, the sort of philosophy that Peter Fury has. And before Peter Fury, the brother who trained him before that. And their whole method was hit and not get hit. Boxing, and that was a very different way of approaching.
Much different than John Fury's fucking prison rules.
Yeah. Big John. Well, I'm sure we'll hear from him soon enough. But I thought it was telling as well. Just if you look at the reaction of Fury's team, when the result was read out. Maybe it's just the fact that they were in Saudi, and after everything that happened before the first fight with Big John, that maybe they were told to behave themselves. But I thought it was telling that they didn't create more of a ruckus on the announcement of the decision. I think that they were maybe pleased with the performance. It was definitely better than the first fight, even though ironically in the first fight he had Usyk more hurt in those rounds 4 to 6 of the first fight. He never had Usyk hurt like that last night, although he did. There was one uppercut, I think, in round 5, which was Fury's best round, that steadied Usyk up a bit. But in general, he didn't repeat that success, especially with the uppercut. I mean, I think just touching briefly on it, Matty, that was a sort of a thing that I think a lot of people overlooked in the build-up to the rematch. Was all the focus was on how Fury would adapt, the things he would change, and no one was really sort of given much time to the notion that Usyk that he also would look at the first fight and change certain things and tidy up on other things. And I think the biggest example of that last night was how rarely Fury caught him with that uppercut. I mean, that was something clearly that Usyk's team had gone away, looked at, how not to get caught with that again. And you saw it there last night, and that was the sort of punch that gave him the most difficulty and that troubled him the most that first fight. So I think it was just an oversight of a lot of people. And it was only really when the fight ended last night did you realise what he sort of, that uppercut really wasn't in play at all last night. So it's just a thought that I had after watching it.
I think it wasn't that so much people overlooked it. I think that we just naturally assume Usyk is going to make
not us. I wasn't meaning us.
Ring. Oh, okay.
I wasn't had us in mind. I was more talking about just the sort of the usual suspects, the sort of the people that are it's their living to talk about these things. But
you were literally fighting every month before you fought Joe Frazier in Kingston, Jamaica.
That was out of nowhere. But yeah, this is a weird argument I want to make, guys, and tell me if you buy or sell it. He will get in just because of the nature of things today and popularity contests and stuff like that. But despite his skill, despite how at his best, I would say that Tyson Fury probably competes with any heavyweight in history. I don't think Tyson Fury has a resume that is suited for the Boxing Hall of Fame that I would like to see. You buy or sell that.
How would you go away to let anyone in the fuck? We're in the Boxing Hall of Fame. For fuck's sake.
I think he
Let
does.
anyone in
Matty.
the Boxing Hall of Fame. For fuck's sake.
I'm not I wouldn't be like I don't dislike Fury, nor at the same time I'm a fan of him, but I would say that even for those Wilder fights, just if you just take those on their own, I do take the point that his resume could be stronger, but those fights on their own, get him into the Hall of Fame, I think. And the Klitschko win as well, I don't think it was. There's been a lot of revisionist history about the Klitschko fight. I think a lot of people forget how it really was a stinker of a fight.
Why are they trying to make it again? That's what I don't understand. They're like, oh, yeah, we need to see Klitschko too. He's nearly 50. He hasn't fought in about 10 years. The first fight was terrible. Who the fuck wants to see that rematch?
They're just trying to make box office at the end of the day. It's just one of those things.
Fury wearing
It can't be understated as well how big of an underdog he was in the first Klitschko fight. I think.
Oh, he was.
I might have been one of the only people on earth that was.
They
fucking
tried to
backing
stiff him, didn't they? And all with the drinks and the canvas.
Well,
Dark forces. Dark forces.
In my argument that I don't know that he has the Hall of Fame resume, I think you should consider that out of his 37 fights, 10 of those have been against Usyk, Wilder, Chisora, and McDermott.
Bernd Bond has tried to put the phone under the ring. The fight's off. The fight's off.
Just big John and Don Aussie Folly storming off after hitting Bernd Bont with an invective.
The thing is, as well, with the Hall of Fame, I'm not a big fan of Hall of Fame or whatever, but considering who they're letting in and the criteria, you've got to have the likes of Fury in. And also, I've said it before, Usyk now, he's just cleaned up, hasn't he? Because not even his own wins, but by
Usyk
beating
cleaned
Fury,
up 2 divisions, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But you're also like sucking up the juice, for want of a better expression, off the people you're beating. Like, you can't say anything against him now. Like, he's taken Fury twice, and he's sort of taken those 3 Wilder wins as well, the other big rival. He's beat AJ twice, and all the wins that AJ had and all the unifications he had. You're sucking up the juice of those fighters too, what they achieved.
Do you know what,
Steve?
Steve?
Unbelievable, like.
The funny thing is, I believe that there are still people out there who believe that Wilder at his best would beat Usyk. I don't believe that, but I believe there are people who do think that.
Wilder has
give him a chance because he could turn anyone to stone. Like, he only the diminishment of his powers after he got fucking his face smashed in by a fella 4 stone heavier than him twice in a row. You know that way? Like, it's like the fucking people forget about Wilder that he probably could fucking make light heavyweight or certainly fucking cruiser if he wanted to. Like, he's an extremely fucking light guy, like for a heavyweight division, and you'd have to think that a fight earlier down the road for Usyk, or earlier down the road for Wilder might have looked like one or two of the fucking Lewis Ortiz fights that Wilder had, where he loses every second of every round until he doesn't. Do you know that way?
Well, Rob, an interesting fight as well.
Wilder had a chance against him.
Sorry to cut across you, Rob. An interesting fight as well that never happened, remember, was Wilder Povetkin. I think would have told us a lot at that time as well.
Absolutely.
About how he dealt with those kind of styles.
And I think as well, if you talk about Fury can live in any era, I think if Fury had been around with Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, Ray Mercer, a prime Mike Tyson, and Lennox Lewis, I think Fury would have had to have been a counter puncher because he's too easy to hit. I don't think he holds a shot very well. I don't think he's got great balance. I wouldn't fancy him to beat any of them guys prime for prime, if I'm honest.
Same here.
I wouldn't either. But I don't think this has been a bad era. And I think apart from the odd 1 or 2 fights, we've got most of the fights. And conclusively, AJ Usyk twice, Wilder, Fury 3 times.
Even he and
Fury,
Joshua would have been two
yeah,
massive fights for Fury. That really would have boosted up
well,
his,
that's
his
true.
status.
That's a good point.
And do you know,
At the top
do you know,
level, we've sort of got them, haven't we? Sorry, Des.
do you know another thing, Steve? I would like to have seen Fury and how he behaved himself in that 90s heavyweight scene when you've got to go out to America and you're walking into, like, for want of a better expression, the hood. I'd like to have seen how Tyson dealt with them press weeks and how he dealt with them evenings. I'm not saying his bottle would have gone. I'm not saying that at all. But it was a different. Listen,
Different
the guys
time,
like
wasn't
us,
it?
it was a different time, and you conducted yourself differently, and there was an awful lot of. You could cut the atmosphere with a knife on some of them shows, and I just think I wonder how they. Heavyweight boxing is very skillful now, but it's softened a little bit. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but certainly 80s and 90s heavyweights, Rob will tell you, Steve will tell you, that was a different type of scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and if it was him instead of Herbie High going over to fight Riddick Bowe, could you imagine? It would have been carnage.
Correct.
Yeah, I think he would have added something different to that generation, though. There weren't any like real big men movers. I mean, he's very unique in what he does. It's style make fights kind of thing.
Just going back briefly, Matty, to what Steve was saying about how just stepping back and taking a broader look at Usyk's resume. I mean, I think you have to also remember as well. The point has been made by many people. How many of his wins have come on the road? I mean, we just need to dwell on that. I mean, just the fact that I don't know the exact numbers, but I mean,
all of them at world level.
I was gonna say, yeah,
everyone, isn't it?
Yeah,
when he hasn't fought in Ukraine in what 10 years? Not as long as that, but it's been a while.
Yeah, it's and there, it takes a certain character, I think, to perform and have the assurance to perform in those circumstances. He was going into these places, like for example, the first Joshua fight, and AJ is the guy that he's the house fighter. He's the guy that all the broadcasters and all want to continue to win for him to profit and so forth. And therefore, you don't just have to win; you have to win. You have to win properly, decisively, which he did. So yeah, it's the cruiserweight run as well. He beat some, beating Gassiev, and I know maybe Gassiev was maybe not the fighter what some of us, including myself, thought he was, but
we didn't know that before.
We didn't know that before. It would have been, and to do it in Moscow.
Brady's too. That was one of his hardest fights, I think.
That was in Riga, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I mean, that was I think that was probably still maybe the toughest fight of his career. Some people thought Breidis nicked that. That was the atmosphere, not just the fight itself, but the atmosphere. Watching. I think Andy P was at that fight, wasn't he, Steve?
Yes, I think he was, and Danny Young, I think, went as well.
Yeah, and just watching on TV, the atmosphere at that fight.
Yeah, you couldn't hear the bell ring, could you?
Couldn't hear it. It was raucous, and it was a counterpart. The other semi-final between Dortico and Gassiev was even better. But Usyk, he's and just going back even to what Des was been saying in some previous pods about the amateur tournaments, he won not really the Olympics that everyone sort of homes in on, but these European championships, which maybe the same focus isn't on it, but to win them, you're talking about the absolute cream of the amateur crop, and to sort of pick off all these titles and the consistency, just to step back and just to think about the consistency of performance over decades, really, not years. You're talking decades. I think it needs to be appreciated. We do appreciate it, but I still think it could be maybe a bit more appreciated, especially amongst our UK broadcasters who were, really, some of the stuff that were coming out with last night. Maybe we'll get to later, but
remember, Dom, when you go to the Europeans or the world, there's not a qualification process. The best countries in the world send their best squad. So, you don't get really good kids missing out on these tournaments because for whatever reason, or they was injured, or they got a bad judging, or they had to go to a bad qualifying tournament. You get the best countries. And if you think about the Europeans in the world, particularly the Europeans, think about all them countries in Eastern Europe now, the Kazakhstan, the Moldova, the Latvia, the Lithuania, the Hungary, the Turkey, they all send their best kids. There's no qualifiers, so you don't get good kids left at home. And don't forget, Usyk was the guy that beat Beterbiev at 2012. I mean, so what does that tell you? And like we talk about eras, I think what we can agree on, if you're talking about Alexander Usyk, to beat AJ twice, to stop Daniel Dubois, and to beat Fury twice, that's a run of Lennox Lewis proportion. That's a brilliant, brilliant run.
Yeah, that's true, man. It's very strong. Because who else could he fight where he could possibly improve his standing at this point? Like,
I have a suggestion. I think I have a suggestion that would improve his resume. If you bear with me, fellas, because when his first fight, or his first or second fight at heavyweight, was against Derek Chisora, but that was only Derek or Chisora. Nowadays we've got Derek, minor skirmish Chisora, Derek minor altercation Chisora. So I think Usyk has to show that he's he can dispatch this latest iteration of Del Boy.
Nigel Farage next to His Excellency.
Derek ceasefire Chisora.
Jesus Christ. In all seriousness, if you look at the heavyweight landscape, there are some interesting fights for Usyk out there. I think that, and they're not necessarily anything that'll hugely improve his resume, but the guy's making 7 figures a fight at this point, no matter who he fights. It's all money in the bank. It's all added defenses. And I think that, honestly, Bacoli is an interesting guy for him to fight. And again, in the realm of styles make fights, Kabayel is an interesting one, just because it is clear that Usyk does not like it to the body whatsoever, and Kabayel has no problem investing down there. He'll probably get eat up down the middle while he's going downstairs, but I think stylistically it's an interesting fight, but it'll probably never get made because who gives a shit about Ajit
exactly,
Kabayel?
Matty. That's the thing, man. It's interesting to us because we're kind of picking at straws. But why on earth, would he go with someone like a Bacoli who can't get a fight for love nor money? A big beast of a guy who punches like that, and then absolutely zero risk reward. I'm just thinking from the. You're going with Dubois again, wouldn't you? With the fact that he's on the upward trajectory now, having beaten AJ and got the IBF title. But like Kabayel, man, he wouldn't get near Kabayel. I mean, why would he, realistically?
Definitely more likely to see a Dubois fight again than either of those two, Marty. I agree with Steve. I mean, I would love to see him Usyk against Kabayel. I mean, I really rate Kabayel, but I think Usyk would still be able to keep him. I think it's whether Kabayel could get inside. I mean, before AJ got taken out by Dubois, I was wondering would we see AJ against Kabayel, because I couldn't conceive of a way that Joshua would be able to stop Kabayel from getting inside, and once there he would just go to work. But the getting inside on Usyk and getting inside on Joshua, as I don't need to say to you, Molly, or anyone listening here, is a completely different kettle of fish. And
100%.
But I mean, I do rate Kabayel. I mean, I love the way he goes downstairs. I think he's one of the more exciting heavyweights to watch. But I would prefer to see Kabayel maybe fight a Bacoli. I would prefer to see that fight happening.
I'll tell you what fight in this is my thing. I would definitely favor Dubois against Parker, but as I have constantly said, boxing is stupid and best laid plans never work out. Watch Parker upset the apple cart. But if you want to talk about an interesting play, if you're talking about how could you make a lot of money off of this? Well, there is a country with over 1 billion people who really doesn't like the West, and you could sell the shit out of that fight in that country. I'm talking about Usyk against Zhang. Zhang's in his 40s now. He doesn't have much time left. That fight, I mean, you talk about filling up households. That's interesting.
Would it though? Are the Chinese really that interested?
It's better than that one dude whose name I can't forget, who was the Olympic champion. What the fuck was that guy's name?
Are they allowed to spend money on pay-per-view in China? I don't know if it's
they could just be
free enterprise is big over there, Matty. I don't think.
Exactly, Matty. Rob's made the right point, Matty. They could just coerce them into paying for the pay-per-view. So Rob's right. That could be.
Or they'll subsidize it. One way or the other. Like it's. I'm telling you, there's a lot of money to be made there, and I don't know how commercials work in China, but that's pretty good advertising.
And you're looking at Usyk, you're asking is money Usyk's driver? Is it his motivator? To an
Can't be,
extent,
can it?
but not to the same extent. I don't think as the likes of Fury and other guys maybe in the division. I mean, he's bound to have made Usyk more than enough in these past few Saudi fights to retire now if he wants to. Yeah, I think he should retire. I hope he does.
Matty,
I
sorry,
like
can I just...
your man. Sorry, Stephen.
No, I was just going to say, can I just jump in because I need to hit the rodeo, Matty? So sorry to derail things, but I'm going to have to go. And I'm just going to say before I go, episode 600 shouldn't go under the radar. Massive achievement. Fair play to the boys for keeping it going. 600 episodes is amazing. So get the likes up for Christ's sake. Get the super chats in. And then next week, Matty, all being well, if we get over 100 likes, I'll jump in, give you a week off, brother. Jump into the hot seat. We'll do Bellew of the Week. I'll invite the boys. We'll have a right good time. So get them likes up for the lads if you're happy with that, Matty. I'll jump in.
There you go. And yeah, this will give a chance to everyone in the Nutters group if you want to like come up with submissions for the best values you've seen over the last few months. Even though like we're talking Bellew of the Year territory, it'll be nice to do that again. So yeah, please get those likes in, and Steve will hop in there, and you'll get a Bellew of the Week, and everyone will be joyful.
We'll have a laugh. We'll celebrate 600 in style. You boys carry on doing a fantastic job. I've got to go now, but it's always good to jump on and chat boxing and have a bit of a laugh. And we'll carry on next week. So we'll look forward to that. Thank you, Matty. Thank you to everybody. See you later.
Thank you, Steve. You take care.
Bye, boy.
Yeah, that was great having Steve back in there, the one and only Wellington. Always happy to have him back here.
Can we get an AI version of this? Can we just like feed Steve's?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
490 plus episodes or whatever into like an AI bot and just have him back every week. Nobody knows the difference with it.
I'm curious if AI Wellings will make as many terribly horrible picks as actual Wellings. How many prospects will AI Wellings ruin? That's the question.
Well, maybe AI Wellings would just go off and do his own thing earlier. He'd just fucking leave us earlier, like, wouldn't he?
David Palmer kicking in at 499. He says, "Cheers, Steve," and that's real Steve, not AI Steve. So, but yeah, this is it's been a great chat about this fight. I think we should probably move on to a little bit of the undercard there, but it was a great kick as far as our discussions, lively as always. Let's get into seeing Moises Otoma just knock the crap out of Dempsey McKean. And that's a go to you. And the funny thing is, I was thinking like, God, I kind of wish that Otoma was a short orthodox fighter, because I'm like, a short orthodox fighter would chin McKean with his fucking chin in the air, upright as hell. But he just went right over the top with that little left hand angle you like so much after knocking him down previously, ended the fight. McKean tried to survive that, but his corner mercifully said, "No, I think this is all we're going to be doing today." And Otoma just keeps moving on up. Clearly, McKean, no match for him done and around.
But going into this fight, they would have fancied McKean to have got a few rounds. They would have fancied McKean to go somewhere around 6 or 7. And Dempsey McKean's been a 10-year pro. He's a big unit. He's been around. He's done 12 rounds with Filip Hrgovic. They would have really banked on McKean getting at least halfway. And I'm like you. I thought we've got two southpaws here. There's going to be a feeling out process, but it wasn't. And it was interesting because they started double bluffing each other, because Moses feinted to the body, come over the top with the left hand. It didn't quite happen for him. It caught him, just missed him, and then he done it again and caught him on the back of the head. Now it's really interesting when you can drop a big fella like McKean very, very early in a fight with a cuffing shot. That tells you you've got something going on. And then I think Dempsey getting up tried to set a trap, but Moses' hands were just too quick. So Moses done the same thing again. He jabbed to the body, whipped over the backhand, and this time hit connected right on the chin, and he folded McKean. Literally, I'm surprised he ain't torn or done some sort of damage to his ankle. He folded him right over. The question isn't how far does Moses Otoma go. I think we can all assume that this guy's going to be boxing for a world title at some point. I think the big question that we're all going to end up coming around to is how does he get there? How do we create the pathway for this guy? And we threw this out in the Nutters chat last night. And, you know, bring in Huey Fury, give him some rounds, bring in Baby Miller. One of my favourite ones, who was, I think James said it. No, it might have been Joe Kennedy, but there was loads of names being thrown into the equation of just to get Moses Atone with some rounds. And I think that's what we've got to try and do now, try and work out how this kid in the next 4 or 5 fights, maybe the next 18 months, goes from where he is now to world level. There's a very good chance he'll
interesting
skip
move.
Domestic titles.
It's an
so
interesting move, Des, because honestly, like the fight that you're looking at is going to be him against, hopefully Dubois still holds a title coming in, you know, like probably like a year from now, a little better than. So what you're kind of looking for in 2025 for Itoma, it's going to be a little bit of seasoning and a whole lot of smoke and mirrors. You're not going to want to upset this apple cart knowing the big money. So you're going to want to throw them in with some names who probably really aren't what they once were kind of people. Don't really have what to challenge them anymore, but because they still have a name that registers with the boxing public, they're going to use those people to try to elevate him and just get him a little bit more, you know, against some different styles, and then get him in against Dubois. And he'll be doing something like that in his 15th fight, which is quite incredible. But I do think that they're going to match him very cleverly over this next year.
But I think you could have a lot of latitude with his matchmaking. And so, for example, I think he might be one of them Amir Khan type guys. He might be one of them guys that skips domestic titles. You could sort of fast track him. And if the only problem we've got with a Moses Atoma is once he's there, you can't come back. So if you was to say, for example, just throwing it out there, if you're putting him with a Baby Miller and he beats Baby Miller, then you can't come back and fight David Adelaide. You've got to keep him there. And if he beats Baby Miller, you have to assume he probably beats Andy Ruiz. So now where do you go? So I don't think it's a case of him not being ready. I just think it's a case of we don't want to fast track him just yet. But the next 18 months for this kid, it's going to be very hard to match him. It's going to be very hard to bring opponents in. You're going to have to spend a lot of money on bringing people in. And if a door just opens up, they might take the chance with him because he is really, really good, this kid.
Absolutely. Who's also really good is Slappy Gilmore throwing us a 20-pound note in there. It says 600 episodes, boys. You absolute G's. I am very feel Alexander Usyk, the Mozart of boxing. Woo! I try to do that with how as best as I could with the punctuation, trying to figure out how you want that to flow, Slappy. I hope it came off okay. We would appreciate you very much there, very much for throwing that in there. And such great fans out there today. Let's see here. Let's keep the heavyweight thing rolling, and we can even kind of blend these two conversations together a little bit. And James, we sometimes Dave Allen's the punchline of a joke, but he certainly wasn't a joke for Johnny Fischer yesterday. And he gave him all that he could handle, dropping him in the 5th round. And James, I don't know if you're like most people who thought that that Dave actually deserved the victory here, but at the very least, all those question marks that we had about Johnny Fischer have come boiling to the surface.
No, I definitely thought Dave Allen won the fight. And beforehand, I must admit, I had a funny feeling for him because, like you say, he's ridiculed, but at the same time, there's no doubt in that he's very comfortable in the eye of the storm. You know, he's happy to have a high guard, slip and slide, and look for these big clumping counters. And, you know, he's durable and he's cute. And, you know, maybe he's not the fittest, or, you know, his jab's not that snappy. His hands aren't that quick. But he's a very capable professional who's been in there with like the likes of Luis Ortiz and stuff. So it's the kind of fight where on paper you could probably look at Dave Allen's age and the wear and tear and think a big unit like Johnny Fischer, who has this kind of how far is he going to go aura around him. That's you know, part of the selling point for him. Because if he starts to overachieve, then you can really start, you know, building some momentum with his profile, etc. But I thought Dave Allen was, showed him the type of tricks that only somebody with a good chin, who's used to slipping and sliding, who's sparred hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds can bring. And I think once he got his, once he started to make a mark on Johnny Fischer, and I think it started really when the ref allowed them to fight on the inside, allowed them to tangle and wrestle and rough each other up. And Dave Allen was holding Johnny Fischer's head with his left hand and banging him in the jaw with his right. And for me, the more he started to do that, the more he started to chip away at Johnny Fischer. And, the less reactive he became. And, fair play to him, the more punishment he took and the tighter he got, the only thing he instinctively knew how to do was fire back and scrap. So there's no question marks after this fight as to whether Johnny Fischer has appetite for professional boxing. It's really an ability thing. And I feel like he was basically the home fighter last night, and he got the nod undeservedly. But that's not his fault, really. I don't even think would they even go for the rematch? Where's the ceiling? Like,
I think they kind of have to, because he's obviously what are you trying to do? Get a domestic title? So he's got to go through Wardley at that point in time. I think it would be.
That's a massive step up, man. The difference between Dave Allen and Fabio Wardley is like night and day. So
he's going nowhere near Wardley. He's going nowhere near Wardley.
So, and that's why I say I think he's got to fight Dave Allen again at this point in time. And it's just and what was interesting about that fight for me is it was when you're watching guys as they're developing as fighters. This was like one of those perfect moments. And for Rob, it was for me why I thought it was just like, this is a great test and, kind of sink or swim. And you saw it unfold because as he was working and doing everything that he could to try to get Dave Allen out of there, he just kind of ran out of ideas. And then the ref was talking to him about some low blows. Rob, he kind of took his eye off the ball, and Allen just snuck a left hook in there, and the entire fight just changed on a dime at that point for Johnny Fischer. And it was an entertaining fight down the stretch, but I don't know that he necessarily won around the rest of the way.
Yeah, it was entertaining in our house because me and the missus and the little one very rarely watch fights together. A lot of the fights I watch kind of don't have the crossover appeal of an Usyk Fury, so we were all watching the undercard together. But my missus would have been accepted into maybe the position of first ever female panelist on Boxing Asylum from her analysis, because she said, who are these two fat cunts when John Fischer and Dave Allen fought? And she said, this is fucking dog shit. This fight is terrible. What the fuck is going on? So she knew what she was watching. Years of fucking listening to the best, Mrs. Kelly. But what I'd say about John Fischer is he's probably inherited the outlad's genetics, hasn't he? He didn't look in the greatest of shape last night. He looked like he's been eating his way into all of that 17.5 stone, no definition on the body.
Boshed his way to a split decision.
Yeah, I thought he was in boshful form last night. When Dave Allen is old man in you, that's it. Like, I don't want to be like, I really don't. I'm kind of at this age now. Like, when I'm fucking 46 years of age, I'm fucking next major milestone is 50. If I get there, please God, I don't want to be disparaging to pro fighters, but you have to call it like you see it, and it is what it is. If Dave Allen is old man in you, I can't remember. Ozzy will tell you the guy he knocked out. What was the guy he knocked out when he threw a right hand from fucking 2 weeks before and your man never got out of the way? He was a bit of a British prospect himself. Nick Webb, that was the one. That was Dave Allen's crown and glory. All his other fights have been when he fucking Homer Simpsoned his way against fella and used his fucking head as his defense. Well, he took fucking punches from Argentinian journeymen to fucking Tony Yoka, you name it. Like, he's able to take a shot, isn't he? Now, if Dave Allen is old man in you, that says a lot about where you are. And I would just like to say to the people behind John Fischer now, pump the brakes on this a little bit. Like, this is great. The dad's doing all the social media selling. They're building his career. They have the Romford Army. He's a ticket seller. That's what he is. Sometimes the sport needs these guys. He's a ticket seller. But he's not a fucking fighter, man. He might have dug in and showed balls last night, but he is going nowhere. And I tell you that now, he won't come past Dave Allen and put in a better performance than that. He won't go on to do great things. He Keep him away from those guys like Fabio Wardley, even Thomas Carty, who's calling him out there. Fucking end him. Sometimes it's all right to be a ticket seller and make your money and get out. Now, if I was John,
Find a nice local venue that seats about 3,000 people and bring over
if I was John
Polish
Fischer,
people
honestly,
with polished records.
it might be a hard pill for him to swallow. But if I was him, I'd be going the Tommy Fury route. Try and get yourself. He's the influencer space. He has that fucking social media trajectory. He has that kind of traction on his page. Go and put him in with a fight against somebody who can't fight and two of them sell tickets together, because he's not going to challenge for anything. It'd be a challenge for him to stay fucking in shape, to be honest with you. I thought, he showed balls, so what? But what does showing balls against the 2025 almost version of Dave Allen do to you?
Yeah.
Granted, he's with Jamie Moore now, but Dave Allen was what he was. He was a ticket seller himself. These guys were each other. Do you know that way? And Dave Allen was an underachiever at that. Like, so is that a bit of vindication for him? Is he showing what he could have maybe done with all his potential down the line? He's a lazy get, Dave Allen. He never fucking applied himself. He came in out of shape millions of times. He disrespected the sport and himself, and he fought with his fucking face. So if Dave Allen is an old man in you in 2024, when you're supposed to be the prospect on the up, it's not just a fucking bad sign. It's hugely alarming and a big cause for concern. So unless Johnny Fischer gets back to the drawing board and wants to really fucking dedicate himself, and even if he does all that, I still don't think he's going to have what it takes, and that's fine. Sometimes it's okay to be a ticket seller, make your fucking money and get out. But any of these hopes and dreams about him going further in the sport, he'd get wrecked. He'd get fucking wrecked. Could you imagine putting him gets into a position where he has to fight a Dubois or something? Fuck me, man.
Well, Rob,
But
do
yeah,
you
that's
know
what I
what I
say
don't
about
like about all this? Do you know what I don't like about all this, Rob? It's all the, and I want to hear what Ames and Dom have got to say. I'll just be quick, Matty.
Sure.
I don't like all the lies that this has been built on. Like only the last fight, the promoter was telling us live on air that he's a world-class prospect. But can you see how you apply? Yeah, and we said that on this pod the night after. But Joe Punter,
that's dangerous for him, Dave, isn't it? Like,
yeah, that's terrible. So now you've just had Dave Allen, who's never won an area belt, and we're getting a 2025 version of Dave Allen, over 18 stone with a belly. He's just done that to Johnny Fischer. The best thing to do was give Johnny Fischer that loss. The best thing to do is say, no, you lost that one. That's an L. Now, everyone will respect him, and they'll go, you tried really hard. It was what it was. It is what it is. Now, that's going to follow him around for the rest of his career, undermine everything he does and everything he stands for. You couldn't have just ripped the heart out of someone easier than what he did last night. Sometimes boxing doesn't help itself. And giving a kid like Johnny Fischer, you're a world-class prospect, then giving him a bullshit decision like that last night, you're just building this kid on a foundation of lies, and it's going to get the kid hurt. I couldn't agree with Rob more. Have a chat with this kid and say, if you can sell 3,000 or 4,000 tickets a fight, let's build you locally. Let's get you involved with some local companies. Let's get you some revenue streams. And if you can nick an area title or go down the influencer route, that's where I'll take him. But could you imagine if Fabio Wardley had beat Fraser Clark, what he would do to Johnny Fischer? And that was for a domestic belt. What would David Adelaide, that just beat Solly Bakers, do to Johnny Fischer? Like, this kid's miles off. But we're being told lies, and it's dangerous lies, like Rob said.
Well, and they're very blessed in the fact that, they do have the name and people like them. And if you put on a show, people are going to come. I mean, he can make a living fighting the likes of, the Jay McFarlands of the world. And that's not many people can say that. You're blessed, go forth and do it, I say.
Well, Shane McGuigan said something last night, and he's a really good talker, Shane McGuigan, and he's not a bullshitter. He's very straight. And he said live on Sky last night, all I can say is when a kid's selling 5,000 tickets, sometimes judges, they just lean towards them. It's not right, but it's what people do. I've never heard that type of talk on Sky before. And that's exactly what happened last night. Now, I don't know where that's come from. Maybe it's the same bloke telling everyone he's a world-class prospect. Maybe it's got something to do with the tickets he can sell back here. Maybe they've got plans for him. But I agree with what Rob said then, and it should be said by responsible people in boxing. It's lies. His career is being built on a foundation of lies and untruths, and it's bloody dangerous.
Yeah, and apparently he was paid $375,000 last night. So, well, Turkey Alashik, sometimes you swing in, sometimes you miss, my friend. Oops, you kind of overpaid on that one. But anyhow, yeah, I don't know. It's Dominic, I think I'm gonna go to you on this one because I think I can get an unbiased perspective on this one. You know, we've seen a couple of heavyweight fights that have last couple of days have given us a little more clarity, I guess. What do you think is good about the British domestic heavyweight scene right now?
Probably need to ask. You're probably not the best person to ask.
See, I thought you'd be unbiased. If I asked a Brit, they'd scream it's the greatest thing since sliced fucking bread.
It's not the fact that it's not the fact that I'm biased. Maybe it's more just the fact that I haven't been paying attention, but of late. But no, I mean, I'll just offer a few thoughts on the fight because I did actually catch this fight on the undercard, and I can't really add anything to what Rob has said and Des has said, but I would just say, you know, I noticed Mark and Jimmy Tibbs in Fischer's corner, and you know, those are guys, especially Jimmy Tibbs, who would be, you know, very deeply respected. And you know, you'd like to think that they would have the sort of the gumption to sort of initiate those conversations about pumping the brakes, because you know it's all nice and having a laugh about, you know, the whole circus around this guy and the father outside the ring, and you know the sad thing is, and the sort of chilling thought is that, you know, until something bad happens in the ring, we don't really think about it until it's too late. And it does happen whether we like it or not, and we don't like it. These things, you know, they can, and a heavyweight as well, you know, it can end up. Look how easily he was being hit. If you're getting hit that easily against Dave Allen, those uppercuts that were landing, if you're getting hit that easily at that level, you know, it's just too dangerous, I think. So yeah, I would just like to draw attention to the presence of the Tibbses and
Dom, can I ask you a question, mate?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Right. So let's just say he sells 3,000 tickets a fight at a mean average of £80 a ticket, right? Because that's what it costs these days. Call it £60 a ticket. So a mean average of £60 a ticket. So what he's doing every time he fights, he's giving a promoter 180 grand. If they can get him out 5 times a year, he's giving a promoter nearly £1 million in ticket money. Let's just say what Thomas Newman told us there is on 250 grand a fight. That means Mark Tibbs is getting 25 grand. If he's out 4 times a year, he's getting £100,000. Where's Mark Tibbs ever going to see that money as a boxing trainer in a year?
Yeah.
So the people that have got to say to him, listen, we've got to have an honest conversation, they're the ones making money out of him.
I know it's true of Mark Tibbs. I saw Jimmy Tibbs there too, and I was thinking, you know, his reputation, you'd like to think, you know, he would be less sort of.
Yeah, and I hear that, mate. But let's just say for a trainer to earn 50 grand a year, right? For a trainer to earn 100 grand a year,
one fighter,
he's got to have a stable making £1 million a year. Well, that don't exist in this country. That don't exist. So Mark could potentially be getting 100 grand a year just on Johnny Fischer, that covers it.
Yeah,
but
I mean, the only thing
you've got to expect. Go on, mate.
The only thing I would say is, you know, I do remember a few years ago there was a story about Mark Tibbs being offered the Daniel Dubois gig, and turning it down. You know, when I don't know if it was before or after Dubois went to the McGuigans, but
is that probably to do with the Daz interference, though, or the Daz
alleged
interference?
It is, Rob, but at the same time, you know, there's a lot of people who have, including the McGuigans, who, you know, they were satisfied. They knew about the father before working with Dubois, but you know, it didn't stop them ultimately from working with Dubois. So, I mean, I think, you know,
Can I come in
just,
there as well,
I would
Dom?
just
Can I come in there as
go
well,
ahead.
Dom? So that's when they left McGuigan, and the next fight was Usyk. That's for big money. How do you know the old man hasn't accepted Mark? You're not on 10%. You're on a wage. And Mark's gone. Do you know what? You can go up the road. Because we don't know that conversation didn't happen, did we?
Yeah, you're right. You know, it doesn't prove that. I accept it doesn't prove that Mark Tibbs isn't motivated in the way that I was saying.
Listen, I love Mark, right? And
Yeah,
I want him to do well. I'm just saying, I know what it's like when you're a boxing trainer, and you're thinking, I've got 8 or 9 kids in here, and he's on $9,000 a fight, and he's on $5,000 a fight. I'm getting 500 quid for 3 months training. Like, so when you get someone like Johnny Fischer come along and says, you're on 10% of this, if that's what he's on, and I'm getting 250 bags a fight, and I'm at 4 or 5 times a year, you think, hello, I've got one here. I could have this for 3 or 4 years, and this is what I can build on. Yeah. And if you've got someone like Johnny Fischer in your camp, it's all eyes on you. All of a sudden, it attracts other fighters. You get other kids. All of a sudden, you're building something. So I just what I'm saying is, and maybe I don't want to be personal with Mark and put him up the front here, but it's very hard for a trainer to have that conversation, and it's equally as hard for a promoter to say, do you know what? For that £1 million a year in ticket money you give us, we're going to ask you to call it a day. So the very people we're turning to say to this kid, like Rob said, listen, slow down a little bit, you mob. For the very people that had that conversation, his dad included, they're the very people taking the most out of it.
Yeah. I think what someone mentioned, I don't know whether it was yourself or Rob, I think the best outcome would be to have this rematch. And a lot of people last night were saying this would be a rematch that would sell very well at the O2. I'm not in a position to say whether it would sell as well at the O2 as some people seem to think it would, but I think he can't go any after on the basis of last night. It would be folly to try to take on anything stiffer than Dave Allen. So it's even if Rob, as Rob said, if he was on that sort of YouTuber circuit, it's safe in terms of their own. They're not as vulnerable to get to injury. I think it's just it's not full on stuff. So it was just it is alarming. I mean, I at one stage I was texting Steve and saying it was good, honest fun, but that was sort of an acknowledgement that the quality, as Rob's wife was saying, it was poor stuff, and sometimes poor stuff can be good fun, but it was poor all the same. But the getting caught,
it's like they were at the same, they were at such a fucking similar level that it made it a super competitive fight, even though the fight was shit.
Yeah.
As far as it goes, so I do think that this the general heavyweight scene is pretty good, and it'll be interesting to see how Atoma plays in there. Let's venture back to that one.
Atoma could have beat the two of them on the same night. Could have beat the two of them one after the other last night.
100%. 100%.
Well, let's venture back to that. And Ames is on with us again. Ames, is it ridiculous for me to think that for Atoma maybe next might be, I don't know, maybe something like David Adelaide?
I don't think that fight with Adelaide happens at all. I think that level is in the rearview mirror. It doesn't make sense to either the way that the pace that he's been running at, the pace that his promoters Frank Warren.
Would you put him in with Wardley then?
No, they're at the same gym. It's not
there you go. That's right. It's tough call. So what? Straight to world level then? I mean, what are we talking?
No, I mean you could still buy a little bit of time here, but you are rapidly running towards that sort of level. I think is
it an Amir Khan type trajectory, Aim? Is it a case of just getting past, let's leapfrog these domestic kids and let's get him European fighters and fringe world class fighters? Does he go the Amir Khan route, Ames?
It depends really, because at this point there's not many more levels before you'll get into fighting Usyk, and don't, as much as I rate Italma very highly, I wouldn't want to be thinking about Usyk being in 1, 2, 3, 4 fights time kind of thing. So I think there is some management that has to be done. And I think they look more at Dubois, who they've had a lot of history with, more so than Alexander Usyk. But I think with Italma, there's you could hold him a little bit and look at the likes of, it's not going to be a popular thing, but Joe Joyce here.
Yeah.
From a Okoli perspective, they might look at it, but Okoli won't want to look at that because they're looking at titles and above and rankings and things.
What about Jermaine Franklin?
Jermaine Franklin, I think he's tied up promotionally in terms of a conflict as to whether he's still aligned with his promoter. So I don't think Franklin's going to be in the ring for now.
What about Yoka? I think he's basically achieved opponent status at this point in time.
Yoka's sort of searching for a fight.
Excuse me.
He's sort of searching for a fight. I think that he's more likely for Joe Joyce. I think maybe you look at someone like Frank Sanchez, who's maybe been on these cards looking for that opportunity.
That's a tough fight.
A Luis Ortiz as well.
That's not as much. Ortiz is 45. I remember he was. I think he was at the WBC convention jockeying for position too.
Mm-hmm. Pulev was mentioned as well, wasn't it? Wasn't he? I think post fights.
Yeah, Pulev beat Char. We didn't even talk about that fight for a title, like some sort, I guess.
I think David Hay made an interesting point on the TNT broadcast last night. It's not just opponents that is going to be difficult for him to get, but I think there's a lot of word going around that it's difficult for the guy to even get sparring because people are saying, you know, what's the point?
No, sorry, Dom, I don't agree with that because these fighters, they want to spar Moses Italma. They recognize how good he is, and he's been in a lot of camps. Fury's brought him in for this Usyk camp. Don Charles and Dubois, they brought him in for the Usyk camp. They recognize his traits: southpaw, big, heavy, big fighter with he's got a bit of pop about him, can move around. He's got an array of skills that's needed to displace the fighter that they've been looking to displace in the last couple of years. So at least in the immediacy, he's been brought in very readily for sparring.
Right. Well, that's I think Hay seemed to be suggesting that as he develops in this next period, that could be as much a challenge as the actual fights themselves. And you know, for his benefit, I'm glad that as you able to say there that in this recent period he has been getting that work, because that's probably more beneficial to him than the actual fights at the minute. But yeah, it's what age is he? Is he actually, what age is he at the minute?
I think he's 19. And where he's not getting the work is at his own gym, because I believe that they're being kept separate from sparring. So Italma doesn't go near Wardley and vice versa, and AJ as well too. So he won't be getting sparring from his own gym locally with Ben Davison, who'll kind of go out and join up gyms. Look, this guy's he's destined for that big level. But it's just whether you're pulling the trigger and you're looking at Dubois and Usyk right now, and I think he still needs that a couple of fights before that. It's one of those things with heavyweights, and it works both ways. Whether you're searching for the next star, you've got one, and there's a lot of push behind them. You never truly know until they get there. But he's certainly kind of ticking all the boxes as of right now, and he doesn't seem to be slowing down in his pace as well. McKean, I thought as well, might pose a couple of challenges as well too, just because his size and some of the phase of attacks that he does throw here. But it was no match for Italma. And I was wondering if obviously Ben Davison's kind of been a trainer that some fighters have sought after, and Moses has said to me in the past that he's someone who's never really kind of had to think too much about game plans. He's just always adapted in the ring, which suggests he's got a real kind of in the moment active IQ as a fighter, and then you're going to a trainer who's all about the game plans, all about the tape watching, all about this is what you do in this situation and scenarios, and then prepping for them, and that's taking away your adaptability in the moment to having a set response to a particular situation, and that doesn't seem to have caused any turbulence in his game. He seems to be thriving still under those circumstances. So it seems like he's able to really kind of balance that side of things as well and add that to his game. So yeah, he looks, for all intents and purposes, a brilliant prospect. I just want to go back to Fischer and Allen here. Look, being really, really honest about that fight to add to the mix as well too. I think part of the matchmaking for that fight was to kind of give Johnny more credibility, because hardcore boxing fans have really kind of, and I feel, I'm sure it won't be the most popular amongst the hardcore boxing fans, but I think hardcore boxing fans have been particularly harsh on Dave Allen, and they matched him with Allen so that Fischer, who was getting a bit of pelters as well too, because some of his outside of boxing, his activities in terms of his TikTok and things like that, his persona sort of bleeds into the boxing world. They've matched him up so that he can dispatch of Dave Allen, so that people can't put the tag of Dave Allen out. I don't agree with that kind of idea, but this is what my finger on the pulse is of that situation. So that then Fischer doesn't Fischer's dispatched of Allen, so Fischer can't be the next Allen, basically. And that's what I think the plan was here. And he's fallen short here, which is a real shame. And I've been in that gym quite a few times actually, and known Mark. Like, I know obviously the conversation was going on between you guys. I'm not saying that you weren't saying it was the case or not, but Mark does really care about his fighters, and I think more from the point of view of Fischer, particularly when I've spoken to him in the past, Fischer recognized and acknowledged that now that he's won a Southern Area heavyweight title, he had to pick up the camps, pick up the game, pick it up to the next level, and he's fallen short of that next level. So that needs to be readjusted, and a debrief needs to happen as to what they do to pick him up to that next level. And I think for someone who's got the Southern Area heavyweight title, I think that means you've got a little bit something about you. So I don't want to write Fischer's chances off completely. And part of that is because when you've got so much fanfare and you've got people that want you and want to be at your events and book you and your dad and this, that, and the other, that means you've got a lot more rope than other heavyweights are afforded to. And you can sell tickets as well too, not just in your locality, not just in the UK, but in other countries as well, seemingly. That means you got a lot more rope to go over there and learn your craft and hone your craft and have a few more knockovers before you try again at that next level. 25 years old, Johnny Fischer is. So the capacity to learn and improve is there. Going back, switching the focus to Dave Allen, look, there's the more and more I've got into boxing, more and more into boxing gyms, I'm starting to realize there is, not that I'd never thought it was, but there is such a thing as gym fighters, and Dave Allen has been pushing for a long time that, you know, in the gym and inspiring, like I'm brilliant and I'm on another level. And I'm not saying I didn't believe that, but I wanted to see that on fight night, and he'd always kind of just fallen short, as well as kind of being used and abused in terms of his position and fights that he shouldn't have been in, but he was willing to take with experience he might not have taken. But you wanted to see him replicate the form that he apparently had, and the form that brought him into camps and brought him into recognition from other fighters who said he's got something about him as well too, replicated on the night at some point. And he really kind of, I quite enjoy watching Dave Allen's YouTube channel. And he kind of really put a lot of stock into this night, and he said as much as, like, if I didn't do anything tonight, then I would have probably retired. And I think he's shown at least some of what he can do. I remember I'm at the McCracken gym, and Spencer McCracken Jr. I won't name the fighters that he was mentioning, but he said 2 fighters to me. And I said, who would you think would win a fight out of that fight? I said, oh, this guy, absolutely. And the fella was world title challenger a couple of times, absolute mean power puncher, dispatched of a prospect in a high profile fight. He goes, well, I'll tell you, like, he got pinged around the ring by this guy, and this guy had been nowhere near the heights of that the other fighter had been. And look, if that's any sort of Alan can sort of sympathize with that, then maybe there's a bit more room for him to, just like Fischer as well, to make a little bit of money on the way out, maybe get a title opportunity down the road. But rematch, I think, has to happen soonish. Scorecards didn't reflect the fight, which is a shame. Scorecards on one of the biggest shows now, that the whole kind of Riyadh season, Saudi Arabia, the fight's moving over to there, and this idea of this UFC kind of model and things like that, and boxing kind of being not like how it was. Well, poor officiating is still happening on the biggest nights, on the biggest stages, where people are watching boxing, casual audiences are watching boxing. Rob, you just said your family would sit down to watch that and looking for, they were paying attention to it about who should win and who should lose, and then they come out and think, oh, the wrong guys won here. Like you're not really presenting the sport in the best light.
In fairness, a lot of it was like, look at the belly on your man. How is he a pro? Is he a pro, this fella? Look at the belly on him. I kind of disagree about the rematch, because I think Alan has the edge on him, and I think if he got him in a hostile environment where the Romford Bull army were in, and there was total silence when he got dropped, I think he'd have fucking difficulty overcoming that. I heard Jamie Moore talking about it after the fight, and obviously he's Dave Allen's guy, but he was talking about it from the perspective of Johnny Fischer too, who's not probably going to take any great glory in wiping out his career. He said that maybe a fight away from each other before they come back together would probably be the best move for both. So I think that's what you're going to see. I think you get Johnny Fischer back out on an undercard on something.
And what's next for Dave Allen?
This is the fucking... What's next for Dave Allen? Who gives a flying fuck? The fucker is back in. He's back. He's like the fucking boogeyman, man. He's like Michael Myers. I feel like we were writing him off 5 years ago, and he's still here for me to fucking... Like, I've nothing against Dave Allen, don't get me wrong. Like, he's fucking, he's obviously tough at the very least. He's a tough young fella, like, but I think for his own safety, he probably should have fucking retired, or for the cumulative damage that he's taken. It wasn't pretty. Like, some of the nights we watched Dave Allen get hidings, like Dave Price, fucking.
Is the Doncaster De La Hoya, Rob?
Yeah, they called him. The ring announcer say that Papi De La Hoya last night on the way into the ring. Fucking.
Don't forget, Rob. Don't forget, Rob. He was sparring partner for Huey and Tyson for a long time as well. He's copped a lot of punches.
Usyk knocked him out standing up one time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and someone that really cares about Dave Allen thought, let's send you out to sparring partners for Usyk. Yeah. That's the mentality around these people. Like he's copped.
For his safety, I would like to see Dave Allen retire, but I don't think he's going to. That way. Put it that way.
And I'll go back to saying Ames said, and I always regard what Ames says as high, but I think when you say Johnny Fisher's 25 and there's plenty of room to develop, I don't see that. I think he's basic. He don't hold a shot. Last night showed me he's not much of a puncher. His balance ain't there. He's got slow feet. I don't know what you're going to get in the next 3 or 4 years out of him. I think it's I think it's a very low ceiling, and it's about matching him correctly and picking up an area belt. And if one comes along, it's got to be the right opponent. It's got to be for a vacant British title. It's all got to be stacked in his favour, and he still might not win it. He's a very, very limited kid. What I would say about, I hear what you're saying about there's a need in boxing for kids that can sell tickets, and there's a need in boxing for kids that can bring something, and he does bring something. What I'm against, Ames, is the bluff and the bullshit. I don't like being told he's a world-class prospect. Don't insult my intelligence. I don't like judges doing that to a kid like Dave Allen, who no one deserves that. But I don't like what it does for Johnny Fischer either. If Johnny Fischer got the L last night, he'd have been a hero coming home. They'd have told him how much arsehole he's got, how tough he was, how brave he was. You got off the floor. It's the hardest fight you've ever had. You've learned so much. And he'd have built and grown off that. Instead, it's going to undermine everything he does for the next 3 or 4 years. That terrible, scandalous decision will follow that kid around.
I tell you what, as well, by the way, in the Saudi Arabia cards, this happened in Bivol Batarbiev as well. Will they stop stop telling people who's won the fight before the fucking ring announcer does it, will you? Because Dave Allen was caught audibly on camera last night going, they've told me I've lost this. they've told me I've lost it. I haven't got it.
You know, we're lucky to have Ames on here, who's got so much inside information, and he really does get round the gyms, and he speaks to a lot of the trainers and the fighters. But I just think,
yeah, and be sure to check out Seconds Out so he has a job. It's very important to us.
I remember Roy Jones getting robbed in the Olympic final, right? And I know it's a complete different example, but he got robbed by the Koreans, and they gave the gold medal to their kid Park Si-hun. And Park Si-hun has never, ever taken that gold medal out of the box. He can't even shout to his mum and dad because he knows what they're thinking. He can't shout to his kids or his grandkids because once they go and look it up on YouTube, they realise it was a robbery. It was bullshit. And that's what happens when you job people. No one benefits from it. The sport don't benefit. Poor Dave Allen ain't benefiting. And Johnny Fischer long-term won't benefit from it.
That's one of the things that you would have hoped you'd have seen an improvement, like Ames said, when they're making this fucking UFC model or whatever, because that was what we all wanted, wasn't it, for boxing over the years? Like,
Correct,
fucking remove all these boundaries, take the barriers away, promoters work with each other. The obstacle was always, we haven't got enough cash to pay everybody if all the promoters are involved. Now we have enough cash to pay everybody and we're still getting stinking decisions. Like, it's fucking, you can't have everything, I suppose. Can I just say, by the way, while we're on it, 600 episodes, I'd forgotten completely that this was episode 600. I think I was on 300. I might have been on for episode 300. Definitely wasn't on as early as 200, but that's an 11 and a half year run on the pod, and I think we should take a minute to recognize everybody that fucking came before us. So Maddie was, I think, the original host. For me as a listener before I joined the pod, Andy, Steve, Kurt Ward, Press Pass Paul, Tommy the Guru, Alan, all the lads that fucking built it and made it what it was, and the rest of us that's keeping it going, but mostly
Dave the Hater, don't forget Dave the Hater, Rob.
Dave the Hater, Lowback, Donnie,
Kurt Ward,
Kurt, like all the guys that contributed to it over the years deserve a mention for keeping it going, but mostly the listeners.
Chuck Boy has entered the chat.
Well, he's entered at the right time because he's going to get his flowers now. The listeners, I'm kind of more of a bit par player on the pod these days, but in terms of the relationship with the listeners, that's what's after fucking making it. You guys tune in here. You're a weird bunch of, some would say degenerates, not me. Oh, that's been said by other people. I wouldn't say that. Degenerates, weirdos, you know. But you're ours, and we definitely appreciate you tuning in here every week and giving us the fucking motivation to keep doing this, even at times when the sport is kicking us in the balls. We live for the nights that fucking you get the unbelievable and the unexpected, and that's what it's about. So thanks everyone for fucking sticking with us for 600. I can't see it being here for another 600, but stranger things have happened in the dark, you know that way.
Yeah, and even he doesn't hop on, like he used to. But Andy was so instrumental in this show lasting as long as it did.
Of course.
So he has so much love going out to Andy on that one. Yeah, it's been a good run, and I apparently I'm going to drop Chuck with the link here in a little bit, but we're going to get through the rest of this undercard because he wants to go back to the main event. So
I think it's fitting that Chuck should come in here at 5 to 11 to discuss the main event. And that's what's coming from me. You know that way?
That's how I see it. So let's get through the rest of the undercard here. I'm just going to drop the results and then kind of let you guys we'll roundtable at anything you saw, anything you liked. Go ahead and get into it. So Sergey Usyk got a victory over Ishmael Davis, who stood in there as long as he could, but eventually succumbed to Usyk, and he just didn't want more after the 6th round. Daniel Lepin took a UD over Dylan Cullen. Peter McGrail won a very close fight over Reese Edwards. I've seen a lot of people with Edwards winning that fight. Isaac Lowe gave a decent account of himself, but lost a couple of points for his mouth guard and came up short against Lee McGregor, who had a really nice looking right hand at times. And then Andre Nowitzki had a very, very tough outing with fat Mexican guy Edgar Ramirez going to UD. Maybe not as hot of a prospect as many people thought the Ukrainian to be. Let's see here. Why don't we go ahead and start with James?
No, nothing for me, really. I mean, it was kind of as expected beforehand. I mean, Usyk is like Terminator style, stomping forward. And I thought, to be honest with you, Davis looked quite smooth, built like a bodybuilder, good footwork, etc., but just couldn't hold the shots. And that was the story of that fight, pretty much. He took it for as long as he could. I think the Isaac Lowe fight threatened to erupt in the first round, but like quickly simmer down into a bit of a predictable pattern. But yeah, apart from the Dave Allen, robbery, there wasn't much to talk about for me on the undercard. I mean, we spoke, I think it was last week, about how top heavy this card was. And I was waiting for the main event from pretty early on, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was not the undercard we had hoped that it would be. Unfortunately, but because Usyk against Madrimov would have been a really nice, appetizing fight right before the main event. Let's see here, Dom. Why don't you give us your take on the rest of that undercard?
Well, the only one I saw, Matty, was apart from the heavyweight fights, was Usyk against Davis. And I just wanted to say I was actually quite relieved to see the corner. Maybe not relieved, but I thought it was a good decision from Davis's corner to pull him out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
At that time, so often you see these guys who are maybe they take a late notice opportunity and they're in over their head, and they're left in there too long. So it's sort of just a reassuring once in a while to see a proper decision made like that, and sort of taking it out of the fighter's hands and taking it out of the referee's hands as well. So yeah, that's all I saw apart from the heavyweight fights. Yeah.
Hey, no worries. Let's see here, Des.
I like Usyk. I think he's a war dog, and it was a real hard ask for Ishmael Davis, who's had a very limited career on the back of I don't know if Ames might correct me. He's had no amateurs, I don't think, and he's come into boxing, and he is that kid learning on the job, and he's had really good management, and they've brought him up on kids that can't punch or coming from the lower weight. And it's incredible to think that 2 fights ago he was fighting Troy Williamson, and he had it all his own way. And Troy was very predictable, very one-paced, done everything in straight lines, didn't offer any feints. And you kind of see Ishmael at his best, where he's got time and room, and he can pick his shots, reset, and go again. Against Usyk, he must have thought, "What have I done to deserve this?" Usyk in your face. He invites you to fight, and Ishmael's not a puncher, and he's not really a in the mixer type fighter, but that's how he was forced to fight last night, and it became a suffocating process. So I'm with Dom, and I'm with Rob. I love that corner work. We've brought you here. You've earned a few quid. You've had several rounds with a world-class operator. Now let's pull you out because he would have got iced. So brilliant corner work. Great experience for Ishmael. We likened it to Zab Judah and Junior Witter in the sense that you're being given a free hit here. So let's go and enjoy it and try and get as much out of it as you can. And I think they did. Peter McGraw.
They said on the broadcast that he was a father of 3 by the time he was 15. So hopefully his grandchildren
he's lived a life. Yeah,
look after him.
he's lived a life like you, Rob. I think this geezer. You know what I mean? He's had a really busy life, Ishmael Davis.
He's been in and out of custody. At Her Late Majesty's pleasure. He's been around, but
sounds like he's been more in than out. If he had 3 kids at 15.
Yeah, but I'd like when I finish about this one, I'd like to know what Ames says about the Dennis McCann thing, without overstepping the line or revealing too much, because it's very early days yet. But I think Dennis McCann would be kicking himself because the Peter McGraw fight was one that was a big fight that he could have won. And when I look at Peter McGraw last night against Reese Edwards, Peter McGraw, he's very compact, he's very neat and tight, he's got quick hands, quick feet. And as bizarre as this sounds, having all of that, he's still a bit of a one-trick pony. And a good fighter will figure him out after 3 or 4 rounds. And when McGraw slows a little bit, you're going to have a lot of success with Pete McGraw. And Pete McGraw will win titles, but I don't think he'll ever beat the good kids. I think he'll have a career similar to Colin Lyons. He'll pick up domestic titles. He'll always be in good competitive fights. But I don't think he'll ever beat the good kids. I think he's quite predictable, and I think he'll be easy to get to if you've got a bit more motor skills than what Reese Edwards had. Reese Edwards did come into it, and he started to believe in himself in the second half of the fight when McGraw slowed down. That became a good one, an interesting one. Isaac Lowe, pretty similar, but maybe a couple levels down. he's just not going to beat the kids that have got more motor skills. Anyone that's got variation, understands angles, can fight on the back foot, has got some sort of awkward southpaw backhand, Isaac Lowe will find that a nightmare. So Isaac tried really hard last night, but he was always behind the 8-ball, Lee McGregor. And I think that's it, mate. We've spoke about the other ones.
Yeah, there's just a couple other small things going on there. Ames, why don't you give me your take on the undercard?
Yeah, I didn't see too much of it really. I was in and out of work. Just briefly on the Dennis McCann thing, I can't say too much. Just want to hold back a little bit for the moment.
Yeah, I understand that, mate. Yeah,
should hopefully be getting a bit more information next week and on the podcast. If you remind me, then might be able to speak a little bit more on that. What was the look, Davis? What is it? Back-to-back losses now for Davis, who seems to be quite liked by Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing, but I think he's got to realize now for those 2 losses, he's got big opportunities, but he's liked to find him an opportunity as opposed to look after his career. And he's got to kind of realize that and realize what path he wants to get himself back on. If it's like those quick paydays and being in those positions on short notice is what he wants, or he's looking at lofty ambitions at a high level, then I think he needs to maybe kind of turn down an opportunity and get himself back up on the path towards that. With Bohachuk, I can't shake my head or ever forget how Brandon Adams was able to knock him out. And Brandon Adams is a very capable type of fighter, different type of fighter, of course, but he found an angle on Bohachuk, and then when he hit it, he didn't let it go. And he got that amazing stoppage victory over Bohachuk. And I always see that vulnerability with him. I always see that potential for an upset with him because of the way he fights. But Davis wasn't the guy to cause that upset on the night.
Well, it's funny you mentioned him too, and I actually, if Bohachuk's having trouble finding a solid fight, I'd like to see him fight Katsarakis, who just picked up that W over Brandon Adams.
Yeah, he's an exciting fighter, but Bohachuk is, that's for sure. I just think he's very, very beatable.
I think Madrimov. I think Madrimov would have beat him if he's fit? Ames, do you not agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Just way to say about it, I think I know it's getting off this card, but I've just been reminded that Lomachenko announced his retirement during the week, and I suppose we can't let this episode end without just touching briefly.
I don't think he did.
Or did he not?
I think he might have been had by that fake Benson account.
Oh, really?
I think so.
There you go.
I heard about that fake Benson account. That's
I've been hot as well.
Unless I've been completely in turn had here. It's a bit of a hadception. I don't think Lomachenko has retired or nothing.
Must check that.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's an insane possibility that he might be done, but yeah, I don't think it's official or anything of that nature. So, unfortunately, but yeah. So, but it was an event yesterday. I guess somebody got a vehicle. Some fat guy got a vehicle. I don't know what the deal with that was, but maybe it was a contest for who the fattest guy in the crowd was, and he won the vehicle. I don't know, but congratulations to that guy. But anyhow, it was a heck of an event. But if you want to come on here, Mr. Chuck Wu, let's see here. I'm going to copy and paste the link in there, sir, and I'll let you come aboard for a couple minutes if you want to talk about the main event, because it's episode 600. So why not a little bit of Chuck Wu to close it out since you're not asleep? So there's the link. Go ahead and hop in whenever you get a chance. But yeah, it's been a hell of a run, and I'd like to think I have 100 more episodes in me. I think that might be all that I have. Steve thought at one point he might have been able to get to 1,000. That might have been optimistic. I think I can get to 700. We have a changing cast of characters every now and then. Someone might take the reins. That doesn't mean it would be the end of the podcast, but that's another 2 years of hearing my stupid voice on Sundays. So, yeah, you got that going for you, which is nice, in the words of Carl Spackler. So, Rob, did you have anything you wanted to say about the rest of the undercard while we're waiting for Chuck Wu?
Yeah, whilst we're waiting for Chuck Wu, just to solve the mystery of Lomachenko's retirement, I've got the post up here and it's a post that's parodying Benson's account called at Best Boxing News that has chameleoned or donned the skin of the former Michael Benson account. It says WBC congratulating Lomachenko on his retirement and a great career, then cites WBC boxing, and then in the picture you have WBC boxing. The Matrix is everywhere, spelt wrong. Lomachenko will be remembered as one of the greatest Ukrainian boxers of all time. Olympic gold medal winner. He became world champion in only his second professional fight, crowned in 3 weight divisions, possessing lightning speed, precision, balance, poise, and brilliance. And on its own separate line, it has just the lowercase e, and then thanks for everything, Loma, and then the graphic, thanks for everything, Vasily Lomachenko, happy retirement champ. I can't find this post on the WBC boxing Twitter, so I think it's
the old Boxing Asylum guys had some good parody accounts. They were the ones. A lot of them had like the Lim Jampley accounts and shit like that. There were some good ones. So, but anyways, joining us, the infamous Jason Chuckwu, one of 20 people in the world who is still defending P. Diddy and R. Kelly, but that's not the moment for this. This is the moment for him to say what he thought happened in the Tyson Fury Alexander Usyk rematch. Chuckwu, lay it on us.
Yeah, I'm on now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, my man.
I can't hear you, Jason.
No, he can hear you. Don't
I can't
believe
hear
him. He can hear
Jason,
you. Go ahead, Jason.
I cannot hear you.
Yeah. Shout, hey, Ames, you know that Melissa girl that was with you when I saw you. You got details in it, man. That's a hot base thing, isn't it? Anyway, let's go back into the main event. The main thing that I came in for. I actually saw the card yesterday. Well, I saw the Fury. I got to what's the venue called? 215 in Bexley, isn't it? Just before round 1, paid £2.50 for J2O, entry free, and it can't load around for free. And yeah, I don't know, because I'm not really good at talking, but yeah, after the first 6 rounds, I had Fury up 4-2. I only gave Usyk what did I give him?
I was with you there, Chuckwu. I had a 4-2 after 6 as well.
I did 4-6. It was close. Fury was I don't know, like he was just going through the motions. Like he's not like in these 2 bouts. He just thought. Obviously, I didn't only caught the last 4 rounds of the first fight, but like I thought like he'd lean on him, do what he does to little people, like for a little body shot, like what he used to do to Steve Cunningham. But maybe it's Usyk's footwork, that Eastern European discipline. I mean, that footwork. Like it's harder than it looks, because Fury wasn't himself. He reverted to Fury from the Wilder fight where he's on the back foot and like instead of leaning on him, like yeah. I mean, Usyk just bedazzled him and he managed to steal one. What's funny? You know who Usyk reminded me of? He reminded me of Corey Spinks as well. I just had to throw that in there, but yeah, I mean Usyk
can punch better, obviously.
Of course, Spinks had no power, but to you lot, I mean, of all time, I mean, where you lot ranking Usyk? Because I mean, I say like of all time, he's got to be like a top 30 of all time. I mean, what do you lot think?
I think Usyk's win last night propels him to the best heavyweight of his era. I think if Fury had beaten Usyk decisively, he'd have the rightful title to that. But I think you have to say Usyk. It was always the conversation was always going to be who wins between Fury and AJ to be the best of their era, and then Usyk was like ripped up the script, didn't he? Like, and just fucking bad business between the two of them meant that we never saw that fight when it was supposed to be made. And now Usyk has the bragging rights certainly on this era. Like,
I think he's definitely. I would have him as the best heavyweight since Lennox Lewis, but I don't think he would have beaten Lennox if they fought at heavyweight. It would have been a great fight, but I think Lewis at his best would have had a bit too much for him. But I think Usyk definitely, I would say, the best we've seen since Lennox.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dom. I think when Tyson showed spells how to fight like a big man, I think Usyk looked a little bit wobbly, unstable, uncomfortable. And I think Lennox knew how to fight like a big man. He was a lot stronger than Fury, could punch a lot harder.
You bigger repertoire punches, Lennox, as well.
Yeah, he did. And he was a big, strong man that knew how to fight like a big man. So I think Lennox would have really, really troubled Usyk. But you're quite right. Usyk's the best heavyweight since Lennox Lewis.
I'd say overall, if you're talking about where he is in the overall, I'd say he's definitely in the top 10. Usyk, definitely in the top 10. But I mean, just going back to what something I think Steve or Matty was saying, those great, maybe it was you yourself, Des, the likes of Bo and Holyfield, guys like that. I mean, if you remember Bo on the night he fought Holyfield, the first fight, a lot of fighters would have struggled. A lot of heavyweights from any era would have struggled against Bo on that night, on that one night. Similarly, the Tyson of the sort of 86 to 88. So there's different guys at different times have been formidable, but definitely top 10, maybe even top 6 or 7. Usyk.
Jason, where do you put Usyk in the last 30 years?
See what? Because like before, like you gotta understand, he's doing this. What's great about Usyk is he's doing this in a super heavyweight era as well. Like he's 6'3". If this was the 60s, or whatever, that would just be like, oh, you're standing heavyweight height. The fact that he's been doing this and he's labeled like the dance around him, like, and it's amazing to watch that. And he's got that Floyd Mayweather stinging power. It's not concussive, but it's enough, like to like, oh, stay away. And it's like, what's crazy because I remember there was you probably know him, Brian King. He was on him and
Brian King, good guy.
The other guy, he had a podcast with you two at the same, not another. I can't remember what it's called.
It was the next big pot or something. Was that what it was called?
That's the one I used to watch. And I remember him saying,
Great branding, by the way. Everyone obviously knew that was a boxing podcast.
Yeah. I remember him saying Usyk's going to move up and beats them all. 2016 time, remember that? I was like, wow, these are just Usyk wankers. Like, what are these man talking about? Dude? Lo and behold, he moves up and he actually does it. And I was like, wow.
Well, famously, I said on the pod after the Derek Chisora fight that I thought he was going to be too small for the big heavyweights. So we were just going to fucking stand on him. It shows you what the fuck I know. Like,
exactly. Yeah,
Brand King, big Celtic fan. That's why Rob's so high on.
He's a good lad, Brand King. He's got a lot of good points.
But Jason, I think sometimes you can be right place, right time. And when Usyk fought Gasayev, I was at the country with my brother-in-law, and I said, this is the guy that goes up to heavyweight and beats Joshua. And it wasn't because Usyk was so amazing, it was because I didn't think the heavyweight division was so stacked. I think Usyk is a very, very good fighter. I think he's one of the best of the last 30 years, no doubt about it. But I think Usyk's coming to the right heavyweight division at the right time. If it had been in the 90s, where you had Lennox Lewis, Vitaly Klitschko, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, even guys like Ray Mercer, Razor Ruddock, I don't think it would have been so easy for Usyk to come into that heavyweight division and do what he's doing now. I think he's coming to the right division at the right time. Sorry, mate, go on.
No, I agree with that as well.
Saying that is all right. I'm with you on that, and I'm with you on that, right? And sorry, Chuku, I'm with you on that, right? And I am the king of nostalgia. Saying that Fury and Joshua dwarf some of those heavyweights from the 90s, even the big ones, in terms of size and mass. Like,
my argument to that is though, Rob, sometimes I think there's a ceiling to how big you should be. And
exactly.
Some
of these guys are too big.
Some of these are too big. I really do. And I think AJ isn't athletic. Like when I think about, say, someone like Evander Holyfield or Riddick Bowe, they're on different planets to someone like Anthony Joshua athletically. I know Anthony Joshua looks amazing, but athletically they're on different planets to him.
And I think that's why Atoma is such an exciting prospect, because I think Hay said it on the broadcast. He's just the right size. He's not too big, but he's big enough. And he's big enough, and he's still an athlete. Whereas some of these guys are so big that their athletic prowess is sort of diminished. So yeah, it's I sort of think when I like the likes of Bo, who was maybe 6'4", or I think he would have destroyed someone like Joshua Riddick Bowe. Even the Bowe who of the last Bowe was like the third fight with Holyfield. I think he would have destroyed Joshua.
But Bowe destroyed himself, unfortunately. He probably could have been 10 times better than what he was if he was dedicated. He was a big fat fucker as well. He was a big lazy gate, Riddick Bowe.
Do you think the Bowe who got punch in the balls by Golota, do you think he beats Anthony Joshua?
No, that was the end. Andrew Galata shouldn't have been able to hang with Riddick Bowe. He was a good enough fighter. He had his moments, but he really shouldn't have been able to hang with Bowe, let alone beat the crap out of him for 2 fights, only, to do what he did.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's crazy? When I was watching the fight,
Go ahead. Yeah.
We thought that Usyk was going to get robbed, that they're going to just make a third fight, in our boxing. We were surprised that they gave it to Usyk.
I thought it was going to be the draw for some. I thought that I actually thought Ames was right as it was going there.
I was WhatsApping Days. I said we were looking at. I was telling him I have Fury up, and he was saying like this happened to Fury before, and I was like, no, I think this time he has his number. And then like the next 3 rounds after round 6 played out, how they did, and Usyk just upped the gears, and Fury wasn't able to live with the pace.
He just upped the gears. Yeah, he just ups the gears. He's so good at that, Rob. We spoke about it last night. He seems to be able to set a brilliant pace in the last third. So from 8 to 12, or however you want to. He just seems to set a lovely pace, and he finishes rounds very strong and very active. Then Usyk.
And what that does is even if Fury gets a second win and he starts to come back into it in the last third, he's not coming in at that pace. He's coming in at like he's scraping the rounds rather than winning them. So even off the optics, it looks better. Having said that, I did think I said today I thought they're going to give it to Fury 7-5 here. They're going to give him 115, 130. And I thought he'd get the decision like. And I think if he'd have got the decision, I don't think people would have been saying robbery either. They would have been saying close fight and he nicked it and maybe Usyk won, but this is the game. We're used to it. Like I don't think it would have been a big massive news story like people crying robbery, but it is what it is. We move on. I'd say fucking Arlene and Jason Jahal and those guys were looking to get on with the link. If you want to jump on there for 2 minutes before we jump out for episode 600, why not? It's nearly Christmas.
And you know, Fury coming heavy last night. Jason, Fury coming big last night. I think being big suits him, but he can't fight at a fast pace. Being big, can he? He's got to be on his own terms. And Usyk kept fighting at a fast pace.
Do you think he's big now because he's lost the spring in his step? Because before, when he was big, we'd look at him bounce on his toes and we'd be like, how the fuck is he moving like that for a big guy 6'9"? And now he can't quite do that. It's better for him to set the fucking.
I bet his knees are giving out, Rob. I bet his knees are giving out.
He's got very thin legs. He's got very thin legs.
He looks really young. His body composition is bizarre. He's a strange looking fella. It's really strange to see a heavyweight that big. And I noticed yesterday.
Wilder's the same thing, tiny legs.
Yeah, but I noticed yesterday that he didn't want to stay in the mixer, Tyson Fury. Once he got his shots off, he stepped back and reset. And like the Tyson Fury that we remember in his aggressive days when he was aggressive, and there wasn't loads of them. Tyson Fury would stay in the mixer and he'd force you back, but he didn't want to do that with Usyk. I think I said to Rob last night, I think he's trying really hard to manage the pace. And I think he didn't want to come out of a comfort zone because it happened to him in the first one.
And the fact that he stayed on a 1-2 for the whole night without throwing
a left hook,
following it with a left hook,
right,
he was staying there. He's still going on the 1-2 because he was conscious of the counter.
It was a 1-2 happy. Yeah, he was. That's true.
How many times did Fury even throw an uppercut as well? Not that many.
He threw it a handful of times. He landed.
Got him a nice left in the fifth. I think he stumbled on a left uppercut in the fifth, but then he stopped looking for it. I think Chuck was right. He did. Everyone was asking him beforehand, but I think that comes down to he didn't want to commit in the space because Usyk holds that just middle distance where he's just out of, he's standing in front of you, but he's just out of range and he's still moving and he's making you think. And I think Fury was thinking he's just that fraction slower than he used to be. If he commits to the fucking punch from mid distance, he's going to get fucking hit with the kitchen sink in the return. And I think that played out. Like.
You've seen it, Rob. The most famous example was Buster Douglas against Holyfield trying the uppercut from range and getting nailed with that shot over the top. I mean, Dubois did it against Joshua. I know the shot Joshua was throwing was more of an overhand, right? But if you're throwing that from a range, someone's going to come over the top. And I think Fury, I did think he was looking for the uppercut, but I do agree he was wary of getting caught with something. And also the other thing you were saying about settling for throwing ones and twos. I mean, Shane McGuigan said something before the fight, which I thought was very telling. He said that in the first fight, when Tyson tried to throw the third and the fourth shot of a combination, that's when Usyk was throwing in between the combination and catching him. And I think, guys, Fury, he will have remembered that. and it plays on the mind.
100%. It was. It's like the hands were fucking stopping him from doing what the mind was thinking. Do you know that way? It's like normally, if you see Fury throwing punches, throwing the 1-2, the left hook comes behind it. There's an uppercut on it. Then he'll grab you. He'll pull your head down. He might fucking bang you in the body. We just didn't want to try and get hold of Usyk because he felt like he was going to come off second in the clinch, and then he didn't want to commit to mixing it with him because Usyk is so good on the fucking counter and he's always moving. So I think as well as that, Fury's not as good on the back foot obviously as he was. I think there's definitely signs of regression with him. That's obvious. Like, but before, when he was so good at getting in and out of range, Fury, and he was so tall, he just kept the fucking lazy left jab out there in your face, and he was backing up, bouncing on the toes, and then letting off a couple of shots, moving you around. There was no chance of doing that to Usyk. So it was just, he was trying to nick the rounds, wasn't he? Like, he was trying to just do enough to nick the rounds and win a close decision.
He doesn't have that same bounce in the feet, does he? That wee bounce that he used to have.
No, that's gone for you. That's gone since the third Wilder fight, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
that went down the bottom of his shoes. I think when the ripples went down through his body. And
absolutely.
Let me ask Jason one more question before we send him on his way. Jason, James actually asked a really good question in the chat. How do you think that the Roy Jones who fought John Ruiz would do against Usyk?
Oh, wow. The thing is, John Ruiz was kind of slow himself. Like, it's hard. The thing is, Roy Jones, as amazing as he was, he had that Froch like defense where it's like that's not going to work against everyone. But his power, he's got like his power is way more than Usyk's.
I don't know. I always said I'm
going to say Usyk by split decision.
Okay.
I always say that.
I'm not really thinking straight though. I'm not thinking straight, so don't take it seriously though.
I think Jones was that good. He would have beat anyone in history in his prime between 154 and 175. But I don't know about north of that. Like, I don't know about north of that. I don't know even if you met Usyk at a cruiser.
Usyk's a better heavyweight. He's a better heavyweight.
I'll say
100%.
Jason, before you go, I want to ask you, where are you with boxing? What fights have you been watching, or what tapes have you? What tapes on the replay have you got to?
I'm out the loop right now. I put the fights on my old Skybox I watched like in January time, but like apparently Cody's a freeweight champion. He's a freeweight world champion apparently. I've still got to watch the there's so many cards. What card was I watching that I need to watch? Chris Beam Smith against Ramirez, and then I think the power card because someone turned off the Skybox. Yeah, I'm starting to catch up. I'm out the loop, but I just have to say I think Usyk should fight Dubois in a rematch in Kiev. Have a final, as a final fight, and then just go off into the sunset. That's what I think
Kiev right now.
Chuckwood, do you not think there's a danger that could be a target for the Vlad and the Kremlin to bomb that? That could be asking for trouble, Chuckwood.
Therefore, get Chuckwood in on geopolitics, Dominic. I think that's the fucking move.
No, we're going to get Chuckwood to take over from Matty at episode 700. As someone in the chat has just said, the improvements that we've seen tonight mean that Chuckwood he's put himself forward to take over from Matty in 100 weeks' time. So
he's got a lot of stores for the next pandemic.
My punctuality is terrible. My punctuality is terrible.
Are you not getting high anymore, Chuck Woo? Is that what's going on?
I'm not high. I'm naturally slow. I can't even roll a spliff. I just look like I'm high, man. Trust me. I don't smoke like that. I just look like it's the image. It's the image. It's the Snoop Dogg influence, but I'm not really like that.
The persona, Chuck Woo, isn't it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, man.
I've been there since was it Bellew Kevly 2, innit? Just like mixed the times, isn't it? So
God help you.
It's been a
God, that was a fucking awful fight.
Yeah. What's your memories of 600 episodes, Jason?
Well, I mean, I just remember Tommy Allen and what's his name? What's the guy from IFL Coogan? I never see Sri Lanka. I mean, listen to that live as well. Obviously, some of my shit talking is all just legendary. But yeah, I mean, it's too many. I've been lazy too much. It's not like still watching the Blue movie.
Fell asleep for 500 of them, didn't you? He was asleep for 500 of the 600 episodes.
Fuck, I almost fell asleep for this one.
Like I've got so many plans, but I just just stop watching porn. I just can't help it. I'm an addict, man.
There's the podcast we didn't know we wanted. That's fucking. That's where you go in 2025, Chuck Woo. Chuck Woo's porn podcast. Let's have it.
Chuck Woo, do you like the skinny ones or do you like the thick ones with big asses?
Bro, I'm just finished like them Incredible Hulk women, man. I'm knackered, man. I'm knackered.
What?
Like the thing is, it changes. I'm knackered, bro. I'll be honest, man. And I've seen
You're not,
veteran muscles, man.
you're not in the queue. You're not in the queue, by the way, for any of these young ones want to try to break world records these days, are you? That's not you in any of them.
That's fine.
No,
Like,
you know what it is? The muscular women got the tightest pussy, though. Like I'm telling you, they're underrated. Bro. They're under.
anyhow,
What a rabbit hole we've gone down here.
Chuck Woo, we love you, buddy, but we gotta get going. Thanks for hopping on, and thanks for supporting the show, man. You've been around.
Where's Andy Patterson? Is he still alive?
He's still alive. I'm hoping he'll wander on maybe for this show next. We're just hoping to do like a holiday show next Sunday.
What about Tommy? What about Tommy? I know Steve's he's a journalist, but Tommy's still good as well.
Tommy's doing fine, and he's me and him converse on Facebook. He trolls me about Trump and he bigs up authoritarian leaders, but he's doing good. He's doing good.
Well, yeah, I've said too much. I've said too much. When it's time to go, I've overstayed.
You're good.
10 years.
You're good, homie. You take care of yourself, Chuck Woo. It was good talking to you, buddy.
You too.
Bye.
Yeah.
He's matured, Jason. Instead of being kicked
Yeah,
out,
definitely making progress.
Did anybody else want to hop on? Obviously, I
don't think anyone can follow that, Matty.
No,
that's a fitting.
Well, Arlene was going to jump on. We were about to have our first female guest since Rachel Ball, and I don't know if she's going to be fucking jumping on anytime soon. You know that way.
As Jerry Lee Lewis once said, "Nobody follows the killer."
Follows that. Chuck Woo's shaking nerves and rattling brains.
Yeah, I'll give a couple minutes. The chat is if you look up above in the chat, the links there. I'll put it in again. If anybody wants to hop on just for a few minutes here, we're not going to keep it going much longer, but we do appreciate all you guys and listening to the show, guys and gals, excuse me. And yeah, Arlene, you should consider joining up in the Patreon so you can be in the Nutters group. So poor Holly isn't the only gal there. We would be remiss if we didn't mention Holly, the queen of the Boxing Asylum Nutters chat. She's always good, and she's a heck of a fan. She follows this stuff, always competing at the top level of the prediction league as well. She is a big fan. But yeah, that's a good group in there. They're a good hive mind. Honestly, anybody who is might be wondering about it who isn't already in there, I highly recommend joining the Patreon. There's a lot of goodies in there, and again, being in that WhatsApp group is a blast. I spend more time talking to these guys than I do like just regular friends that I actually know and shit. But it's a good time in there. Good bunch of folks, and yeah, and we have a diverse set of opinions in there as well. So, but
tell Chuck Woo, don't worry, we're getting the Clarissa Shields next week on Bellew of the Week when it makes its return. Don't worry about that.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I hear they've somehow set her up to fight for the undisputed women's heavyweight title. I don't know who they're bringing in for this affair.
And she's got a movie out as well.
What?
Remy Ma's not going to be wrapping her to the ring anyway, put it that way.
What's the movie called? Pop My Shit?
No, I don't know, but it's out this Christmas, so brings in the festive cheer.
Joy.
It's called The Grinch.
I'll actually
it's called The Grinch.
On the subject of entertainment boxing,
terrible.
On the subject of entertainment and boxing,
The Grinch.
I think you have to give a lot of love to Callie Reese, who has gotten great work, done great work on True Detective, and I think she was nominated, might have won a Golden Globe or something of that nature. So she went for the boxing, ring, and acting, and is just kicking ass. So good on you.
Yeah,
well, it's got to be going better for her than her box, because I never fucking heard of her until just now. Hopefully, she does well at the old acting.
Yeah, that's not saying a lot. I don't. You have, you know a lot about boxing, women's boxing, not so much, unfortunately. But I'm not going to hold it against you, Rob.
Hey, I like what I
like. A lot of other things I'll hold against you, but not the lack of women's boxing in your life.
Listen, if you want to hold Natasha Jonas against me, feel free.
Yeah, well, what about your girl Alicia Baumgartner? She's still fighting.
Ooh, I expect big things from the bomb in 2025. Fully vindicated, it's back on her perch. I actually want to see that fucking. It's about time we had that Meyer rematch now, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, then she'd have to jump up a bunch of weight classes now, and I don't know. That'd be interesting. It would be. I don't think the weight classes matter too much in women's boxing, just to a more degree than the men's. So, but yeah, that'd be a good one, and they could actually have it stateside maybe, and yeah, it'd be a good time. Maybe
the
someone will
women's boxing weight classes are like fucking ASOS and New Look. Like there might be a size 10 in one and there's a size 12 in the other. You know, that way it's not too much difference. It's the same fucking pair of pants.
I don't know how to respond to that. But yeah, it's and I'm looking forward to 2025 for boxing. I think there might be some good stuff. You know, the fact that they're getting on the Bivol Beterbiev rematch so quickly. You know, I gotta ask you, Ames. I mean, you've been around the sport for a little while, and I gotta think that at the very least, we got to say that Turki Al-Sheikh doesn't fuck around. He doesn't let these things marinate. He's like, all right, 6 months later, boom, do it again. And he just throws it up. People are into it, puts a good card behind it, and away we go.
Yeah, I think you look at it from that perspective, absolutely. Look, sure, in the UK, things aren't particularly great in terms of card depth, and we haven't seen that trickle down from those cards where I guess promoters aren't spending their pretty penny, that not fully being reinvested in the cards in the UK. But in terms of sitting down and watching fights and the schedule and the fights that have been made, I think they've definitely raised the game, raised the levels. A couple of mixed signals that I think in the turbulence of trying to go towards a UFC type model and trying to kind of make that a thing, you have the right signals of, right, Dubois got a voluntary in the yesteryears. You would go for the easiest fighter you could down the rankings, but Dubois gone with the informed fighter in Joe Parker, and you can't really knock that. But then at the same time, in amongst the conversation that's surrounding Dubois' potential opponent, you throw into the loop a brief discussion, however brief, but the thought of Klitschko coming in to return to the ring, or Klitschko returning to fight Fury, and that's a real thing. Like Klitschko, I believe, will be returning to the ring. The guy spars 3 times a week, 15 rounds each time, is what I've been told, and he's around his fight weight as well, so he is coming back. So you see these sort of things.
He looks good. He does look good. He's much off his. He was always right around 250 plus or minus 5-7 pounds.
Get the fuck out of here. He's nearly fucking 50. We've seen this fucking movie before. I don't give a shit how many fucking rounds he's back. Get
So
this
was
fella out
Bernard
of here.
Hopkins, motherfucker. So was
Bernard Hopkins never retired for fucking 10-year period in between, did he? And he had no amateur career, Hopkins. That's why he was able to fucking stay so long in the pro game.
Why can't Vlad win I think it would be a rematch over a now 43-year-old Kubrat Pulev, who has the secondary belt?
Like, who the fuck wants to see it? He's fucking 50. He had his fucking time. Jesus Christ.
Rob,
he wasn't good enough.
Irish people aren't the only ones that matter. What about the Bulgarians, Rob? What about the Bulgarians?
Well, there's a lot of them here. I'll ask fucking some of them the next day who they want to see fucking.
It's happening, man. He's coming back. And,
you better not invite that Arlene Burley on before we end, because she or he or it or they have just said a while ago that Sir Joe Calzaghe would beat Roy at 168. So if Rob hears that, he will never get his input again.
But these balls, you fucking the ghost of Roy Joe just dropped him. Would you stop with you?
Anyhow, and I would like to close the show with this with 600. And it's interesting that it is kind of it's poetic in a way, tragically poetic. And I can't believe I didn't touch this on this recently, but about 2 weeks ago we lost the great Israel Vasquez, who had an incredible career at bantamweight. He was a tremendous fighter, and forget the fourth fight, his trilogy with Rafael Marquez was right about the time I got back into the sport. And what incredible fights to draw you back into something. And when I think of Israel Vasquez, if there is something I would like to show people, if you want to know what this guy is all about, it would be that 12th round against Rafael Marquez, knowing the fight was on the line and he had to do something big. And he came up with it. And it was a fitting end to an incredible rivalry. Again, the fourth fight was ridiculous. Don't even pretend it didn't happen. But it was the perfect end to that. And those two guys will be forever entwined in boxing history for what they left in the ring. But unfortunately, Israel Vasquez, in his mid-40s, has left this earth, another victim of cancer. So God bless his family. God bless you, Israel, for everything that you gave to us in the ring. You were something very, very special, a true Mexican blood and guts warrior that we are not soon to forget. So before I close out the show, anyone would like to speak episode 600 on Israel Vasquez, I'd love to hear it, and then we will get out of here. There you go. I think leave it at that. Folks, thank you for being part of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. I don't know that we got another 600 in us, but we got some more for sure. And we will see you next Sunday.
To 600 more.
Very, God.
4 more years. 4 more years.
Anyhow, they love me and they hate me at the same time, apparently. And but I love all of you. And we'll see you next time on the Boxing Asylum.
Dark forces. Dark forces.
We'll never forget.
Golly, that's good at me.
Go to move!
We want to be honest, yeah?
Crying like a little bitch. I've never met a fucking swank that can fight me.
I fell asleep. You're a fucking bum, you're a fucking asshole.
Rumpo fucking Steltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7-year ain't. 7-year ain't.
I will fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love Boxing Asylum. It's as simple as that.